Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. What is up, DB?
You sound so fresh and so clean. Is that like what is going on?
Well, so we got a new mic box here.
I saw it. She sent all the pictures. It was very strategic.
It's true. Sash was locked in. We got a new cam link, so our camera's working again today.
Yeah.
So we can see the lovely faces you brought. Who do we have today? Oh, we got Neundy on.
Today we're going with Coach Sanders and Coach Danny Busboom Kelly.
You're not going to call him Coach Prime?
What did I say?
Sanders. His name, his actual name, you know.
Yeah, I don't know if I suppose if he made me and I was a player.
Yeah. You call him Coach Prime?
I think I would just say Coach.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was really weird back then, so I was afraid of T.O.
I think there was a...
It wasn't my nature to be afraid, though.
Yeah.
No, I pretty much...
Was that uncommon on the team, though? Like, was there like a little... we used the word reverence before.
I would use that as I got older. It wasn't that when I was
almost like
his
intimidated?
Age. Yes, that's the word.
Yeah.
At that age.
Because he's a presence.
Well,
kind of.
And he was such an efficient communicator.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know whether he just didn't want to talk to you or he was busy or
just getting to the point.
Just getting to the like that was different.
People that are kind of real straight to the point sometimes are tough to read.
Yeah. So when I had my former teammate on the phone the other day, remember, and I was asking about, hey, am I misremembering? He was like, no, that's the way it was. It was tough. Like you had to be on. And what was the one takeaway? And we're talking to a tough guy, right? He's historically a tough 100%. Guy. When he said, because I was telling you guys, like when your best player, let me reset it real quick. I don't even know how we started the show like this, but I was talking about T. Phrase. Who I will see in a little bit. And I said he ended up winning his teammates over with something we didn't think he was in the very beginning.
Just tough.
We didn't know how tough he was.
Yeah.
We knew he was electric and but he was struggling with the heat and 2 days were kind of getting him and Mike G was still the guy. At that point. So we didn't know. We're just kids. We came in together. We don't know how to have any of that.
Yeah.
So when I called my friend, I said, hey, I'm not misremembering this, right? Like sometimes it gets a little more pageantry the further you get. He's sure. Like, and he doubled down. He made it sound a lot harder than even I did.
100%.
Right? And when I tell you he led the way, like hang in there.
Yeah.
Hang in. Oh, your legs will get right. Or, we would try to outduel his position group and stuff like that, right? And so when you're in that kind of deal and your coach just keeps moving on to the next thing, he doesn't come across as approachable.
Or like very empathetic. Or
hey, you'll be fine. Trust me. Hey, just we have to do it like this.
Yeah.
We'll reap the benefits later. Hey, just do this and it'll be okay. Or, the famous, you don't make enough to run out of bounds. Like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right?
And you're like, it's hard to tell in that moment. It's like, does this guy just not care?
Yeah.
Or is he telling me the truth?
And they just do their job, right? Did you read Coach Cook's tweet, right?
Yeah.
On X? Hey, I had no idea how many. When you're in it and that's just what you know.
Yeah, you're kind of got blinders on.
That's just what you know.
Like if you go, hey, this is how I know we can get it done this way.
Yep.
Then you keep doing it that way until that doesn't work anymore.
And one of the reasons that I was so enamored with Coach Cook was not for kind of it wasn't just about the consistency of winning. It was about how he kept changing himself.
Yes, like evolving.
Yeah, I say it to my barber all the time. I remember I first started getting my hair cut on Mr. Ailes. It was over off of 20th, Super Northeast, little itty bitty corner booth, right? It's kind of dark, one TV, plug in, floor mount, And I look at his shop now. It's his own. It's immaculate, like the way he's got it done. And I'd always tell him about every 5-6 years, because he's cut my hair for 30 years. I'm like, one of the things that I love about what you do is his ability to keep reinventing himself. And I just think there's something when you watch adults do that, and they just, hey, next level. Like, because a lot of people, I'm a lifelong learner. It's like, well, really, are you?
Yeah. It's like, what have you learned?
Are you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, that's why I like talking to Noddle.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. It would be easy for him to rest in who and what he's done, but he's just not.
That's why you didn't like the Mick Cronin thing.
I couldn't stand it.
Even if he was right.
That's you're not done.
Right. But even if he was right about his team, where they're at right now.
Yeah.
Because we heard that two very different ways.
Oh, yeah.
I heard it as like, yeah, he's right. His team needs to buck up, Buttercup.
I heard it from a position of leadership.
And you heard it as like, hey, you have to keep working too.
Yep.
Which I get. I get not loving it for that reason.
I'm still going back and forth over the James Williams thing. I'm like, you guys, maybe I have a different set of ears, but I'm not gonna be upset over this because I think he was speaking.
Well, here's the other thing about
if he would have changed talent for versatility, would we have been fine?
No, and that's exactly what I said yesterday, right? If he had it to do over again, he probably uses the word versatility instead of talent.
He wouldn't think of versatility though, and I don't need that pound of flesh. If I know that, I don't need him to say that to me.
Here's the other thing though, right? Is in the moment, there's two things here. In the moment, when people hear that, they probably don't know why it strikes them poorly.
Okay, let me ask you something. When you're listening to that, did you at one minute at any point think to yourself, okay, what's the end game here?
No, I did think that.
So the end game was to talk about the fluidity and the structure of an evolving 3-3-5. Apparently, the question was surrounded with, hey, what about this 3-3-5? Does it work? How adaptable? The question was somewhere along those lines.
100%.
So everything that I consume, I think of in that vein.
I understand that. And I agree with you. I'm giving the perspective of we can't discount the way that it sounds to people off the jump.
Yeah. So you know what it is? Let me tell you.
And you can ask people to be better, and I'm okay with that.
So that's what I'm going to say. I get it. I was just going to say,
hey, be better.
I put that
do your research.
Put that on me.
Yeah.
Give me the information and let me do with it what I will.
And that's totally fine.
Okay. So put it on me to be better.
And that's why
I'm just telling you, it's worse the other way.
I get it. But that's why we have the discussions that we have, because sometimes we have insight. Like, James Williams better than most of the people that heard that quote. Not that you know him terribly well.
But, I mean, you're right. You're right.
You know him better
you're right.
than almost everybody that's heard that quote.
100%.
So you hear it differently knowing who he is.
Yeah, just know his heart.
Right?
Yeah.
Most of us don't. Right? So it's important for us to have that conversation so that we can relate to people who heard it and they're like, oh, I don't love how that sounds.
And I'm going to pit it against the context of what we talked about all season. We were being very disingenuous if we want to hold him accountable for that, given
what we felt about the talent.
Real time while we're watching the
100%.
game. Hey, why do we always play it like this? Or when are we going to get this guy out? Or don't we have anybody else?
100%.
Or I'm over it. I want to see the young guys. Or we do the same thing against this look. Why are we always 8 yards off the ball? We would say these things, and we were way worse than anything he said. 100%. And we still kept going back to, well, he should have said it differently. God dang it. He's 20 years old answering the question within the context that it was asked.
You know what bothered me about it more than anything? And again, this is me reading into something.
But now he's an FSU honk? What?
No. If anything, that would endear him to me.
I see you with your FSU colors today.
This is blue.
No, what's the undershirt?
It's a red. It's a dark red.
What is it? Garnet?
It's a maroon, I think. I mean, the FSU one is garnet, but this is more of a
So
maroon.
Garnet is the maroon. It's not the gold.
Right, because it's garnet and gold. So the garnet is the maroon. Yeah, but I would call this a maroon.
I was today years old.
No, here's the thing that bothered me about it, if I'm being totally honest.
Yeah. I would appreciate that.
Because I don't have a problem with him being like, maybe Giff and Singleton didn't play the way we wanted them to. Right? He's not going to call him by name. I get that.
Giff. Singleton,
Hartzog. Yeah, sure.
We went through this.
We kind of killed Tommy Hill a little bit. Here's what bothered me is, and this is me reading into it, is I go, oh, but I really like the young guys. That's what when I hear him say, because I think of talent as the whole room. He's probably thinking of talent of the guys that he played with.
Yeah.
Right? So I get it. That's why I'm trying to be transparent here.
And he said, in my 2 weeks.
Yeah.
The
thing that bothered me about what James Williams said is something he didn't say. I get that.
Okay.
I understand that.
All right.
I also think that's not that specific thing, but what bothers most people about what James Williams said is not something he specifically said, but how it sounded to them.
I had a fantastic conversation. We didn't get any B prep started yet. You know what time we started recording?
I left at 11:15 and you hadn't started yet.
That's incredible, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so for the first 50 minutes, well, AJ had to get set up.
Yeah.
But we were talking about things like that. Mm-hmm. And Jacob said something that struck me as particularly insightful.
Okay.
And he just kind of said it, oh, by the way.
That's generally how Jacob drops knowledge on you.
He goes,
in passing.
He goes, that's the main reason that I have an appreciation when young athletes can speak well and handle the podium. But it's also the same reason I don't always enjoy interviewing young people.
Sure, 100%.
And I was like, that's it.
I don't love interviewing athletes in general. You'll notice we don't do it a ton on this show.
Yeah.
Because I don't necessarily think it's their job to eloquently speak on something that either they're trying to protect certain people.
Yeah.
Especially if they're currently on the team, right? They don't want to say something that's going to make one of their teammates mad.
I had to go to Zoe's school the other day.
Yeah.
And I said, I think I was either talking to her teacher or nerd, it was somebody. And I go, man, I don't miss this, right? I'm K-8 certified with a special ed emphasis. And the teacher, she was asking me like, oh, what? Like everybody says you love kids. I said, no, I love kids. I just don't know if I could I'd have to change my whole way of talking, like giving information. I have more tools in my tool belt as a 50-year-old than you do as a 20-year-old. And it would be much harder for me to go back from talking the way I do the last 30 years to get back in the classroom.
To simplify it
in a way that they could understand quickly.
Digest. Yeah.
That would be very hard for me.
That's totally fair.
Imagine going the other way when you don't even have the Rolodex yet.
Yeah, you don't even have you're not even equipped for it. Yeah, no, I get that.
You don't know what you don't know, right?
Like I said, the only thing that upset me about what James Williams said is something he didn't actually say. It's something I read into it. And I understand that. And maybe if he says it differently, it doesn't hit me that way. But that's not necessarily on him. That's as much on me, the receiver, as it is on him, the giver of the information. I get that.
You remember when you were explaining to me how you felt Jason Kidd felt?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, man, I didn't get that at all.
Did you watch it again?
I watched it again.
You still feel that way?
I could see why you said what you said.
Yeah.
I
like if I'm acting that way.
Now I do think
yeah.
you gave it your feel on 100%. How you felt about it, but I could see how you would say, I'm not sure he was always, because it's not like he was giving affirmative, like nodding his head or smiling or going on. Sometimes he just would sit and listen. But you know what I thought?
What's that?
That was the first time he was hearing some of that information.
Yeah.
So he's processing real time too.
But I think because I agree. I think that was the first time he was hearing some of that information. And I think because it was the first time he was hearing some of that information is part of the reason he wasn't feeling it.
Yeah, but when you told the story, you wanted me to believe what you believed. And I wasn't ready to do that.
That's fair.
Right?
Here's what I was really doing when I watched that is if I was acting that way, this is how I would be feeling.
Okay.
Like if I was giving that body language.
So that in turn, that's how you digested the
100%
that you heard. Okay, that's fair.
If I was talking,
people are probably more like you
sometimes
than not.
Like if I was talking in James Williams' shoes and I go somewhere else, like if we changed radio stations or something and like we go, let's say like ESPN picks us up, we're going national, right?
Yeah.
And I go, oh man, the talent around here is unbelievable. Even if I don't compare it to Hurrdat or wherever we've been in the past, it would sound like if I say that,
it could.
I would probably mean it as an indictment if I said it that way, right?
Could.
Now, maybe that's because I'm petty and childish. That's fair. But I usually read things initially the way I would present them, right? So if I present something,
you know what? I mean, clearly, I sometimes do.
Yeah, that's my first filter. But our first filters are very different.
But I'm not gonna act. It's like what I heard with Coach Rule about special teams,
right?
When Denny was like, "Man, don't let this ride. Be mad about somebody in the media hold him accountable." And I'm like, "Hold him accountable to what?"
Yeah.
Well, this, and this. Wait, let me get clarity. Is this what you heard? Tell me what it is that you're upset about.
Yeah. What did you hear?
Yeah. And I kind of got that some years ago from somebody. It was somebody that said, "Hey, make sure you guys are disputing or debating or talking about the same thing."
Yeah, because a lot of times you're not.
So I always get clarity.
Yeah. You're like, okay, so what is the thing you're mad about?
Yeah, what's the desired my coaching staff, they make fun of me.
Yeah.
Because my go-to line is, what's the desired outcome?
Yes, 100%.
What is it that you want to accomplish by doing this or talking to me like this or saying, like, I just want to know.
See, in mine, I get it from therapy. Because my therapist would be like, oh, what are you feeling right now? I'd be like, well, I'm mad. Okay, but like mad is sort of a blanket. It's like, okay, are you feeling betrayed? Are you feeling like somebody backstabbed you? And then why? Like, what made you feel that way? Because a lot of times you'd be like, oh, I don't like what he said. And it's like, okay, what about what he said did you not like?
So as I'm listening to it,
yeah,
I'm thinking, well, he's not any less. I went back and listened to it. I'm like, I don't think he's any less disappointed in special teams play. I think he's disappointed for a multitude of reasons, and he's had time to process.
Well, here's the other thing, too.
That's why I think it was, we need to make wholesale changes.
Yes.
Versus, well, I think it was this, and this. And I don't really want to come down, because sometimes I do want to say, man, that's your fault.
Sure.
It's not the scheme. Like, that's your fault. If you're supposed to check in the two, get your ass to the half.
Yeah.
Right? Or, well, we tell our, hey, don't tell me what you think. I thought. Okay. I can see. I want to know why.
Mm-hmm.
I know the what.
Yeah. I know what it turned out to be.
Yeah.
Tell me why we got there. I think there's also a part of this.
Hey, these shoes are in front of the door. Well, I didn't have a chance. Clearly.
All right, but why didn't you go back and get it? Yeah, like why? Like, I get it in the moment.
Yeah, clearly I see that we didn't have the opportunity.
But why?
Why are we still here?
What happened after that?
Yeah.
Right. What's the part of the story I don't have? Right?
So I get it, right?
Because
I'm not a ton of fun sometimes, but
I think you're a barrel of laughs.
But
yeah,
I will give you every opportunity to communicate.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you give me a ton of leeway, and sometimes I think
you know what I mean.
So giving me rope to strangle myself.
It just depends. Like, if I think you have control of your emotions. Like, if I don't, if I sense that you are
then
not,
you give me a lot of leeway.
I give you a ton of leeway because I don't have to say much.
Yeah.
Now, I was 24 years old, 25, and I remember I think it was Alan Murrow. No, it was Jay or Alan, and he's talking about paying attention to who asks consecutive questions and who does the most talking. And to be cognizant of that when you're in negotiations and meetings.
Yeah.
And I pit that against when I was younger, and my dad would say, people would tell you 90% of what you need to know if you just listen.
True.
So sometimes I just want,
especially if you're quiet, they'll keep talking.
And I weaponized it because I'm petty.
Yeah.
Like, deep down, I am.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'm going to figure out how to win.
Yeah.
That was my number one goal. It wasn't to be a better person.
Yeah.
I wanted to win.
Yeah. I get it. I get that.
So, but as you get older, like, that's
sometimes good habits come from bad motivations.
Yeah, but when you want to be a good teammate, or you want to move in the same direction as a unit, the goal changes. You don't want to win. You want to be a good teammate.
Yeah.
Right. You want to be in a healthy environment. You want to win to get, like, hey, listen, I'm not your adversary. I want to win together.
You want to pull in the same direction.
Yeah. I used to want to win.
I also think the context of, because I know people were mad about the special teams coach rule thing, right?
Oh.
And I also think the context, because I hear,
how did we process the spring game?
Sure. Yeah.
They're not playing, like, that's still a thing.
Oh, for sure. And I'm sure we'll get to it more.
Ravi, I picked Ryder up from daycare yesterday, and I've only said hi. This super nice lady. She had on this little cute pink. She's a little older.
Yeah.
She's in this little cute pink sweatshirt, and she's sitting on the table. Her legs kicked back. She didn't even say hello. She said, "Tell me why we aren't playing a red and white scrimmage." I was like,
"Oh, we're just
whoa."
starting like that, huh?"
Didn't even see it coming, and I bet I stuttered. I bet I was like, "Well, yeah, I'm serious." So I kind of gave some answer, and I never helped Zoe go get her stuff. I walked over to the table. I made sure she had her water, put her lunch bag in her backpack. Usually, she goes.
You were shook it.
I couldn't. I'm like, this thing is reverberate. It's
a big deal to a lot of people.
Clearly,
which is why I said
it was the second to last thing I heard.
Really,
the whole. Ravi, I binged 5 out of 6 episodes in a show. You think I didn't have time to listen in Chicago? I didn't do anything except consume. I watched 5 out of 6 episodes of American Primeval.
Oh yeah, how was it?
Oh, I'm regretting it.
Yeah.
Fast forward. It was too much too fast.
Yeah.
It's dark. I gave myself a break after the 3rd episode. I went down to the lobby. It was 2:30. It was talking to Kirkman. I was like, man, I might be out on that show. Broad daylight in the afternoon, man. I'm depressed.
I think the spring. That's why I talked about the spring game the way I did on Monday.
I can't believe it's a real thing.
When I said you better give people something.
But now, are we saying that this is the thing though?
Yeah.
Are we saying that because we really like the game, or we like what is it that we're mad about?
I think it's just a little morsel of the thing we love.
You want to see your guys, right?
Yes.
New guys in the portal. You want to see them.
You want to see not just the new guys, but also okay, what are these guys that we like that maybe didn't play a ton last year? What do they look like?
I feel you.
And it's I think again with Coach Cook and saying he didn't realize how many people I don't think people realize how much any Nebraska football thing means to the people of this state.
I will probably agree with you.
It's a ritual. I don't, maybe they only see these certain people throughout the fall. And then in the spring, they get this they get to hang out with their tailgate buddies or whatever. It's not even usually about the football. That's why I say you have to give them something that resembles Nebraska football so that it keeps everybody happy, because it does mean that much to people. And I don't know, I get Coach Rule gets it more than most. I don't know if he gets what the spring game means to people. Because it's just a little morsel of the thing we love.
I'm listening.
That's DB. I'm Ravi. We'll set up the show more here and let you know what's coming up today on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla. We're live here from the Pillar Exterior stage and reminding you to keep your eyes focused and straight ahead when driving. You've got one job as the driver. That is to drive. This message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. We appreciate all of you listening here this morning.
You set the show.
Yeah, we're going to set up the show real quick.
I don't even know who we're talking to. No, I'm just kidding.
We're talking to a few of our friends today. A couple non-regulars, which we appreciate. Nick
and Tony?
Yeah, we got Nick Athan from Chiefs Insider. Start previewing the Super Bowl. Don't know if you know that. It's a big game this week.
Remember, we were talking to Nick a couple years ago, and Nick called his shot, and I think half the city was mad at him.
What did he say?
And he turned out to be right. He's officially part of the Homer Network.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Not like the real network, but the network. I mean, he's a Chiefs Insider.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was all Chiefs radio all the time, and he was talking about the beginning of something great and dynasty potential, and then winning this year, and all of that is
and the run was going to be unbelievable.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, he was saying all
They
of
are
that.
on the doorstep of a three-peat, so he's here to collect his flowers.
And then we get my man Mike J in the middle at 9.
Yeah, got Mike Schaefer at 9 o'clock, Husker 24/7. And we're going to talk to Tony Mejia. He's an NBA columnist.
Cheers.
There we go. Get a little clink.
A lot of different contents, though. This bad boy is 65 calories.
This one's 0. 5. It's 5.
Yeah.
Total. Yeah. Means there's a lot of stuff that's not real in there.
It's still not real to me, damn it.
It's still real to me, damn it.
No, not real this time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're going to talk to Tony.
Although don't tell that to Zoe.
He's going to tell us a little bit more about what in the unholy hell happened in the NBA this weekend because I'm still trying to kind of digest Tony over there at the Sporting News. He's a little bit of a gambling head as well, so I'm sure you can.
I don't know what and
chop it up with him a little
worse
bit.
sport than the NBA.
What's that to gamble on?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't touch it.
It's ridiculous. It's like
I don't touch it.
Just give it away.
Yeah,
give it away,
I don't
give
touch
it away. You got to be on the right side of fixed.
Well,
I shouldn't say that so flippantly, but I mean, again, on the heels of Rozier, who hadn't been accused of any wrongdoing, just taking a look at some irregular patterns.
Yeah, you got to watch out for those patterns.
You know what I think? You know what it is?
I'm a big pattern recognition guy.
Yeah. Over-unders. That's the place where they get you.
Oh, 100%. It's much easier to manipulate.
Totals, yeah.
Really easy to manipulate as opposed to actual spreads and outcomes of games.
Oh, yeah.
Over-unders, especially player prop over-unders, really easy to manipulate.
That thing is never coming to the state of Nebraska.
Yeah.
It's just not happening. It's just too easy.
Yeah, it is. It's really easy to manipulate there. So a couple comments on the YouTube that I thought were interesting from our conversations in that first segment where
I'm beginning to think that David's your favorite because I think twice a week you go, David's got a good. David said
he's been having a good couple.
You talking about DJ because I'm not logged in yet.
Yeah, he's been having a good show or a good couple shows here. He goes, it's like James Williams was our girlfriend. We loved him. He left us, and now he's not acknowledging what we had. And I think there's something to that because what I was going to say, sort of on the similar lines, but not quite, was I think one of the things that bothers us about James Williams, at least I think it's one of the things that bothers me, and I'm not really, it probably shouldn't, but if I'm just, being transparent here, it always seemed like he was riding more for T. Knighton than he was for Nebraska.
Told you have to be dangerous with that, yes.
And that, to me, that bothers me. Like, I'm okay, and I'm not even saying it should. But as a guy that loves Nebraska and a guy that loves the state, not just the school, it bothers me. It's the thing that bothered me about Trev.
Well, it's the thing that, hey, listen, and I've taken some poop, right? 15 years ago, I said, listen, I didn't go to the University of Tom Osborne.
Yes.
I went to the University of Nebraska.
Because you love Nebraska.
I love Nebraska.
Tom Osborne was there.
I love Nebraska. Well, no, man. Like, I didn't go there for him. I didn't. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you I did.
Yeah, that would be dishonest,
right? Oh, I'm closer to Coach Solich.
Sure.
Well, he was my position coach.
I would imagine most players are closer to their position coach than they are the head coach.
So it's not that I don't have reverence. It's just that I think if you're gonna function, it has to be about something different than a guy, a singular person.
Because that gets dangerous.
Well, I've said it for 7 years. I said that's why you can't fall in love with Frost. I said when you're being recruited, what's the thing that I liked about Coach Rule? He cross-recruited with multiple guys because his objective was it can't just
be about Coop, and it can't just be about Sat, and it can't just be about T.Y.
He said we got a family recruit in case one of your family members isn't at the dinner table.
100%.
And I was like, that's all right. I'm tracking.
Because it can be about relationships and not just be about a relationship.
Why did I want Trev to put that to that athletic department and the facility? Why do I want to make that like home? Well, most people, when home life is good,
you don't want to leave.
You don't want to leave home.
Yeah.
So that's the way that you could combat or offset the portal and movement. Like I'm a big.
How many people you know that have really good home lives that left their house at the age of 18 and never came back?
Yeah, it's.
How many you know?
Yeah,
basically none, right? Yeah. Everybody has a good home life. Back.
So I'm much more on your team with that.
Yeah.
But I do also understand, and I'll only use James because of James. We're talking about James.
100%.
I think while his situation isn't unique to some around the country, his story is extremely unique to what was going on at the University of Nebraska at that time.
Okay.
So he had to have a mentor or two or three step in and play a critical role
for him to be able to even make it,
for him to be able to function.
Totally understand that.
So that's where that relationship, because it didn't happen during the recruiting process. Because remember, my man just shows up.
He's
on
sort of an
campus.
afterthought. Like he was just like a guy that showed up.
So that relationship while he was there was fostered.
Yeah, it was outsized
while he was there
compared to what most people.
So it's not like he came in thinking, "Man, I'm going to be a T Knight guy."
No, it was T Knight took care of me.
Yep.
T Knight helped me out when I really needed it.
And
he's
let's be honest here.
Yeah.
Let's be honest with ourselves. We loved it.
I love T Knight.
Hang on.
I love T Knight.
Hang on. We loved it.
Yeah.
When T Knight did the post game, when he did the post game, and he lamented about James Williams, and James Williams gave him the hug, and they had the super long embrace, and we said, "Man, that's what it's about.
It is
investing in young people." So
yeah,
we should not be allowed to judge it when it doesn't go in our favor, and he goes with that guy.
Yeah, I got it. I got it why he left. I really did.
So that's why I'm not coming down on him for that.
The only thing I wish would have happened, right? Because I get it. And James Williams has been public about that.
I wish a brother would. That's what we wish. Who was that? Bernie Mac? Benny McLaughlin.
Exactly. It was Benny Mac, our guy.
Yeah.
Husker Radio Network. No, the one thing that I wish would have happened was...
No, ask Cedric the Entertainer.
There you go.
It was Cedric. And I don't know if we have a Cedric. I'm not a Cedric guy, so I don't know.
I'm not a huge Cedric guy either. He's only okay.
Do you like any black comedians?
I think I like Bernie Mac.
That's it?
Nah, I mostly like him from Ocean's 11.
You a Chappelle guy?
Oh, I'm a huge Chappelle. I went to see Chappelle, remember? I was trying to get you to go with me.
Oh, yeah,
that's my guy. I love Chappelle. That's my dude. I like Michael Che from Saturday Night Live a lot. The Weekend Update guy.
Is he the guy that where they read each other's stuff?
Yeah.
I think he's kind of funny.
I like that guy. There's a bunch. I don't have the list off the top of my head I do with my black friends.
Like old girl at the breakfast Saturday. And it's Black History Month, so hey, what the heck?
Figured, what the hey? No, but I think my issue with James Williams was I get how that relationship became an outsized importance to him and he's been public about this, so I don't feel like I'm revealing anything here. He doesn't feel like a lot of people have been there for him in his life.
Correct.
And so he's riding with his girlfriend and he's riding with T Knight because those are people that have been there for him.
Yeah, both people.
Which I totally get.
Both people happen to be in Tallahassee right now.
Which I totally get, right? Like how much have I said? Like, hey, I'm a big family we choose guy.
Yeah.
Right?
I wanted to supersede the captain.
Yeah.
Keith, man. And I remember a handful of years ago, I said, hey, he's like, I know you have good relationships with these guys. And I said, don't worry, Keith. I'm not going to step on. I ask him all the time.
Yeah, you're not going to go around the system.
Nope. So I said, hey.
Use the proper channels.
Keith, I would really like to talk to James. I think he'll trust me.
Mm-hmm.
He said, let me run it up the flagpole. Coach Rule says, nah, I think we're going to protect him. Too much, too fast.
Fair.
I want to keep it contained.
Totally fair.
And I'm like, so from there on, like, that's the prism that I look at all of this through.
Here's the one thing I wish would have happened with James Williams that I don't think did.
You can't call him the captain. He's the captain.
Yeah. I wish his love for Terrence Knighton would have translated into love for Nebraska.
I get it.
And he didn't make that extra step.
So that's why you like what
And that's okay.
Yeah.
I can deal with that. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. Welcome back. Hurrdat Sports Radio wrapping up hour number 1. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are live here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. And we've got kind of an interesting conversation going here. And Max chimes in.
Sorry, DBK.
Yeah, you got to be careful there.
Yeah, I just wanted
That's our new volleyball coach.
I know, and I wanted to be able to see the audience.
I think we mentioned this when I was last week, but the ovation she got Thursday night,
loudest the building was, right?
Was incredible.
Yeah, good for her.
Like it felt like an SEC school introducing a new football coach.
Good for her.
It was great.
Why the SEC reference?
Because they go nuts. Like at the you ever they don't even like Brian Kelly, and they went nuts at LSU for a basketball game when he showed up.
Yeah, it was the accent. Hey, did you know I didn't know Ali Sadiq was?
I didn't know who he was. I'd never heard of him. Can I say something? And I mean, I don't think we're going to get canceled.
Go ahead. Have you not Have you not been paying attention to the news? It's almost uncancelable now.
Oh, perfect. I'm in good shape then.
I mean, we have officially decided that DEI means black. Like, you can say anything. It don't matter. I mean, whatever.
It's Black History Month. I was trying to be nice to you still.
Do we still get that? Nah, I'm playing.
This year, at least. See what happens next
This
year.
ought to be good.
So, I know that he's a bad person.
Who?
I'm going to get there. I want to preface this by saying that he's a bad person on the front end.
Oh, Lord.
But, like, as a stand-up comedian, I didn't like the show as much.
Mm-hmm.
As a stand-up comedian, he's very funny. As a person, I'm not endorsing any of his behavior. Do you have any idea who I'm talking about?
I was gonna say Bill Cosby, but he just didn't do stand up.
Yeah, he did.
I mean,
He started
early.
He started in stand-up.
Early. Yeah.
I'm sort of a stand-up nerd. Like, I really like stand-up comedy, so like I will go back and listen to some stuff. Like, Richard Pryor is really funny. I'll go back and listen to Richard Pryor.
Are you afraid to say Bill Cosby was funny?
I was just saying, afraid to say anything positive about Bill Cosby.
We're old enough to separate the thing.
Like,
right?
terrible human. I get that.
I love the Cosby Show, even though it tormented me for some of my formidable years.
The Cosby Show was okay.
Do you know what it's like to be called the Huxtables?
I understand how that could be pejorative in certain circles, or be taken as a pejorative as somebody who often struggled with their identity.
Yeah,
I get that. No, I mean,
Team Vest. I'm gonna get Lloyd.
Us and the Lloyd.
He rocks them too.
He
though.
does. Yeah. No, because remember when we played poker, I was like, man, he's rocking that nice polo vest. I like that.
Oh yeah,
I still remember. I need to give me one of those.
Bougie Coach Lloyd.
I think that's why I like him.
Yeah, right. Closet bougie guys.
Yeah, like I mean, I'm not really closet bougie. I'm pretty out there with it, but
my man said about 7 words.
maybe
He's like, you're not taking my money.
Maybe.
All right,
like,
then, D.
I don't know how to play poker. Okay, cool.
Hey, my guy D. Did you say the Cosby Show was just okay? Did you say that in passing? The Cosby Show was better than just okay.
It wasn't for me. Like, it just wasn't that.
I
don't know.
More of a different strokes guy?
I don't know. Maybe it was my age that I didn't like pick up some of the stuff. I used to watch it all the time because it was on a lot, like in syndication and stuff. It just wasn't. I don't know. Maybe I didn't appreciate the humor at the time because I was pretty young. It just wasn't for me. I didn't dislike it. It just was kind of on a lot. I don't know. His stand-up's real funny though.
So I have a vision in my head. Is he wearing a brown suit?
In one of them he has. Like, there's several like specials or albums or whatever. One of them he's wearing like his classic sweater, like his Cosby sweater.
This one he's in a brown suit. It's old. It's young Bill Cosby.
Yeah. And honestly, the funniest, I think, not that he's ever been, but that I heard of him live is when Schick and Nick interviewed him.
When do you think he turned into a creep?
It sounds like it was all along.
Oh, wow.
Usually that's not something that comes on later in life.
Sometimes with power.
Sure. Yeah. But usually there were like creepy things that you couldn't get away with that you would have before. Like, usually it's kind of in there. I don't know. That's how I get the vibe, at least. But I don't know why we're talking about Bill Cosby so much. That's on me.
I guess I got to be careful when you ask for permission to say something.
Yeah, I'm just trying to.
My man said pudding pops were the bomb.com. I never ate those.
It's the Jell-O pudding pop. Yeah.
I hate chocolate.
I don't hate chocolate. I don't like pudding.
Yeah, I'm not eating pudding either.
Oh.
But I would mess with the French vanilla.
Mine's a texture deal. I don't like.
But I stopped eating that when I was probably 9, maybe.
I don't like pudding. Max asked an interesting question.
Mad Max. Mad Max has been a nice late contributor the last handful of weeks.
W.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And we might need a minute to think about this, but I want to put it on our radar as we're heading into the 8:00 hour here. If you two were both hired as NFL scouts, but you're only scouting Nebraska, which 5 players on the current roster eligible for 2026 are you watching the closest? So 2026 draft eligible players.
So not this year, next year.
Yeah, not for the class that's coming up in like 2 months. So guys, they're going to be at least in the 3rd year in the program next season, because that'll be the 2026 draft. So Dylan wouldn't qualify. Anybody that's a sophomore or younger doesn't qualify. That's an interesting question, Max. We'll tackle that at 8:00. because I do want a second to think about it. I don't want to go off the cuff here and say something silly.
I want to make sure I have the parameters straight too.
Yeah, we'll explain. But that's a good question, and I do want to get to that. I do want to get to that, Max. Isaac says, I went to Bill Cosby live very late in his career. It was so awkward. We had a chair and end table with a box of tissues. He was having whole conversations with the person in the audience. Weird stuff. Okay, good to know. Appreciate that.
He might have been on that stuff by then, though.
Yeah, he was struggling, I think, because he ended up getting dementia, didn't he?
I'm not sure.
I think that's why they let him out of prison.
I don't play with stuff like that just because.
No, I know. I think that's
in my, I don't know.
I think that was a thing that happened. But
you know what's crazy?
What?
Considering we're on inappropriate, funny comedians.
Okay.
Did you know Red Fox was in his 40s doing Sanford and Son?
Red Fox.
Are you serious? You're joking. You're Googling Red Fox?
Okay, I was making sure I was thinking of the right guy.
It's got to be late 40s then. I would hope.
He's in his 40s in these pictures?
So there were when he first started doing Sanford and Son, I think he was 47 or 48.
He looks like he's 70.
Well, he played hard.
I would imagine.
I mean, when was...
So he played a lot of basketball on the hardwood?
Why does it got to be basketball, Shane?
I don't know. What else is hard to do? Basketball's hard for me to do.
Don't fall for that, Shane. You see what he tried to do. He looked for his end to be David Ravi Duke.
Whoa!
What?
I didn't play for Providence.
No, the Hooper, yeah.
I didn't play for Providence.
I meant the Hooper.
I didn't play for Providence.
Why would you set that man up like that?
I didn't set him up. He set himself up, and I just hit it. You can't throw up a softball and expect me not to swing.
It's the Ali Sadiq thing, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
You trying to get me back?
Yeah, a little bit.
It sounded more you than me. I had no idea.
So that's a little bit of a misnomer. That's a pretty Muslim presenting name.
I don't even know what that means.
There's a lot of Alis in the Muslim Islam world, in the Arabic world. There's Sadiq also. There's not a lot of Q's in Indian names. Just as a just a little point of knowledge. Hindi and Gujarati and Punjabi, there's not a lot of Q's tossed around in those names in general. Generally speaking, I'm sure there's a couple. Not, Ali Sadiq presents a little more Arabic sounding to me than.
I love how you talk to me like I'm 4.
No, I'm just trying to help DB. I'm trying to take complex subject matters and simplify them.
Were you a Full House or Family?
Family Matters? Family Matters was all right. I liked Family Matters. I liked it when Urkel became like Stefan and he got cool.
What about Who's the Boss?
I wasn't a big Who's the Boss guy. I did like Full House.
Of course you did.
I was young. I was the same age as some of the kids, so I felt like,
big living Maddie guy.
I also
a little late.
I don't know what that is. I also liked their dog. They had a golden retriever on Full House.
Yeah.
I like dogs. So
just trying to get a gauge
on what I was watching.
Yes.
I did watch a lot of Cosby Show. I did,
but it was just okay.
I think all of those were kind of, for me, I wouldn't be like, oh, I loved Full House. It was just okay. But I think a lot of it's my age that I was watching it, too.
Like Growing Pains.
Growing Pains was a little bit before me. Little bit. Family Matters was in my wheelhouse. There was Step by Step was...
Who was in that one?
The lady that did the Thigh Master. I don't know, those commercials. Do you remember those? They would do these infomercials for this exercise thing called the Thigh Master. What's up?
Time out.
What's up?
Time out.
Susan Summers, maybe?
Time the heck out.
Yeah.
Number 1.
What's up?
How was that the first?
Yeah, Suzanne Summers.
Okay, listen. Of all, you could have just said Three's. You could have said anything other than.
I don't know what else.
The hand motion of the Thigh Master lady. Number 1. Number 2.
She did make bank off of that.
What is it? Right? See, you know what I'm talking about, right, Shane?
Look who you're talking to. He probably had posters of her.
Oh man, she's dead. Oh, shoot. R.I.P. Suzanne.
And what about me says infomercial.
I don't know. You watch TV at all hours of the night.
I ain't sitting through a commercial.
No, it's an infomercial. It's edutainment.
That's incredible.
That's the only thing I know her from is Step by Step. She was the mom in Step by Step, and she's the Thigh Master lady. That's all I know.
Yeah, John's right. You're my Lisa Bonet is your Suzanne Summers. Exactly, JV. Team Lisa. Even though she's pretty weird now.
It might be a little out there. R.I.P. to Suzanne Summers, though. Pour one out. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla, and we are brought to you by our friends at Glow Big Red. It's coming up in just a little over a week from tomorrow, in fact. Glow Big Red begins at noon on the 12th. That's my half birthday, if that helps you remember, DB. And it goes all the way.
What is it?
It's my half birthday.
The 12th?
February 12th. Means I'm halfway to my next birthday.
Oh, I'm only 20 days from mine.
I know.
18.
You're closing in.
How many Februarys we have this year? 8 or 9?
How many Februarys? How many days? 9. Because it's last year was a 9. 25, so 28.
Yeah.
Yeah. But.
How you like them apples?
You're about to have your Ver's birthday. Are you excited?
No.
51? No?
No. Hope we have some moisture.
I'm excited for Glow Big Red, though. It's 24 hours from noon on the 12th to noon on the 13th. Gifts can be made at glowbigred.unl.edu. And you know what? We talked about them last week. There's an exclusive giveaway for these mittens here. If you donate $75 or more during Glow Big Red, you will receive a free pair of these fleece Husker mittens.
I wonder if my man Aaron could fish with those on.
Ooh, like going ice fishing?
Yeah.
That's glowbigred.unl.edu to get involved.
I did see there's a chance for precip, but I don't want the freezing rain.
No, I need it to
either next week we could get some moisture.
I need it to either be warm enough to rain or the right temperature to snow. I don't need freezing rain.
No, I'm with you.
You can miss me on that. So I want to go over the question that Max asked us, right? About if we're NFL scouts. So for the draft class after next season, so not this year, we're throwing this year away. So no Ty Robinson, none of those guys, right? No Nash. We're talking about this upcoming draft class, so guys that will be juniors next year. Who are we keeping an eye on that we like talent-wise? I think this stemmed from the talent discussion sort of with James Williams indirectly. I think Max is kind of taking it to the next level, which I appreciate, asking those second and third questions. But it is a super interesting question because a lot of the guys that I like, I don't know. Like I'll use Janarin Bonner, for example. I don't know what an NFL scout's going to think about Janarin Bonner. I don't. I think he's got a really interesting, versatile body type. I don't know what his position and what his role would be on an NFL team. You know what I mean? Like, that's one that I sort of struggle with a little bit. Some of the easy ones, you go, oh, Dane Key's been super productive coming in with Nebraska. You hope that he has a great year with Dylan Raiola. Dane Key's is a super easy one right off the top of my head, right? Another one that I'm probably taking a look at, Riley Van Poppel. I want to see what Riley Van Poppel's doing in his third year in a
So basically,
program.
It's all the guys that are a year older than Caleb.
Yep, 100%. Caleb will be a sophomore next year. It's the guys that have been in the program 1 year longer than that.
Boy, that's tough.
It is tough because a lot of those guys haven't produced at a level yet that would give you indications that they're on a draft radar.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there's a lot of body types that kind of do fit that. Because Riley Van Poppel's a really good example. Hasn't had a ton of production yet. People are kind of enamored with him, right? Like that's a guy that people are really, really into. Now it's easy to go the transfer route like I did with Dane Key, right? You've got a bunch of those guys that are hoping.
What about Harburg?
Harburg's super interesting. Because if you believe Coach Rule, and I do, he's one of the most athletic guys on the team.
Well, I've seen,
you've seen it, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, and I believe him. Both from what I've seen on the football field, you see him in the dunk contest, and then you look at the frame and you go.
By the way, P's over Q's is mind your manners. I think T-Mac wants you to behave yourself.
Oh, I'm doing my best, T-Mac. I
No,
really
it
am.
almost got away from you.
Yeah. That's the story of my life, DB.
Shoot.
No, but Heinrich's a really good one because that's a frame that I think NFL scouts would be enamored with, right? And we've seen guys without a ton of experience being tight ends do really well for themselves in the NFL. You see all the basketball players switching over. That was a big thing, back in the early mid 2000s. You see these guys that don't have a ton of history at the tight end position being really, really good. Heinrich Haarberg might fit into that category.
I wonder about a guy. This would kind of be off the radar a little, so I'm not locking him into my top 5. But a guy that I would be enamored with, like if I just came in and watched him practice, would be Suolafotu.
Why is that?
He's 6'4".
Yeah.
He's 290. He's got some twitch. He would be a guy that if I was watching position drills, not that I ever have, would I'd take a double take.
Yeah.
But again, I don't always know how that correlates into real.
Yeah, how's that translate?
Yeah, because the longer I do this, man, and it sounds so nitpicky and in the minutia, and it just give you a simple example. Like when we slant, like if we put guys on the move, there's a very fine line between what I would call getting washed.
Okay.
Where you get washed down the line of scrimmage past gap fitting that defeats the purpose of slanting versus when you slant, hey, once you see the opening, get back vertical. So you can keep the wash from happening. So sometimes...
So you're talking about, I want to make sure here, you're talking about line play, not like a wide receiver slant.
No,
You're talking about slanting.
I'm talking about D-line.
On the D-line.
Yeah.
So
how finite a thing it is.
To get the slant and then be able to get back upfield.
Yeah, you're not so you understand.
Because if they keep you horizontal, they won.
If in a one-on-one, and a guy does that, it looks great. Ooh, wow, he allowed him to play across his face.
Yeah.
In a game, it may be, well, you're just going to get washed because you
by the next guy.
You just keep going.
Yeah, it just keeps pushing down the line.
So that's why sometimes individual drills don't
tell the whole story.
Don't tell the whole story.
Sure. That makes sense. No, I get that.
So, I remember there was a couple of plays that we couldn't stop in a particular defense, and it took like a game almost. It certainly didn't get corrected in game.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe the Saturday morning film. It was, man, we were getting washed. Like, we wanted a backside D-gap fitter, and there was so much space because we were moving left. We would try to fit off the right edge, and there would be this huge gap. And we're like, how's this guy hitting that crease?
Yeah.
Well, we got to get back can't get washed. You
got to get back vertical.
Get back vertical.
Because the point of the slant horizontal is to get back vertical.
Right.
As opposed to just keep going horizontal.
And it just took a second.
Yeah.
So, but he's the guy, so I don't know how he's going to play like in team.
But in one-on-ones looks
But
really
in
good.
Individuals, he's intriguing. And I like his body type.
Can I give you one?
Yeah.
I don't know if, and I'm not trying to be mean here. We haven't seen him play very much. I don't know if he can play football at all. I mean, he can play some, obviously, because he's where he is, right? But physically...
Now this is interesting.
Physically, he's a guy that, especially at his position group, I think NFL scouts are going to be enamored with. He's probably at least 2 years away, next year and the year after, before this is a serious conversation. I think a lot of NFL scouts are going to keep a really close eye on Jeremiah Charles at some point.
Oh, boy. He is so...
Physically... He's because it's not just that he's big for a corner. He's 6 foot tall.
Okay, this is funny. You're bringing him,
and I think he's a real 6 foot tall.
It's gifted athlete,
and his arms are so long.
Okay, so
like how valuable how valuable long arms are.
I would put. Okay, I'll say this needs perspective. I would put a guy. So the same thing about these two players would be my question.
Okay.
So I'll give you Keelan Smith, and I'll give you're younger, and JJ. Two guys that, like, when you watch them, you're like, ooh, if you were pot committed, like if
you're all in,
yeah, right, shove. The sky could be the limit.
You could be pretty freaky.
But I need to see.
Sure.
Can you be grimy every day?
100%. Yeah.
So JJ's a guy that's really gifted, but he's also a guy that when he got pulled early against UCLA, and I didn't know why they snatched him so quick because I saw the same concept beat the same guys for almost 2.5 quarters.
Sure.
But JJ was the first one to take the seat.
To get pulled for it.
So I wondered why, and it's not like I'm going to be like,
hey, why'd you do that?
But there obviously has to be something to that.
Yeah, you
though,
think
right?
there's a reason.
So
is it fair?
And
yeah,
he wasn't the first corner to go back in
after
or in the bowl game or any of that. So there's something about that is missing.
Posit a theory?
Sure.
He's
health?
No, I was gonna say he's a pretty raw football player still.
Yeah.
Is it possible he doesn't have the depth of experience to overcome those failures?
Could be.
Right? If you've played a lot of football and you're getting beat up a little bit, you have the mentality to be like, okay, I've been through this before, I can get through this. If you're not as deep into that, maybe it's like,
especially at that position.
Yeah, because it takes a mental.
Because you have to ask yourself with all those bodies that they have, even Amari Sanders, right? Yeah. Like, how did Donovan Jones?
Yeah, pass.
Play before
and played well,
right? Because for 2 weeks, there was this, hey, he's going to be our dime corner. BC has 2 good tight ends. He's kind of a rangy guy. He's really smart. But then somewhere along the line, it was, well, shoot, just play corner.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's his competitive stamina. Well, I'm sure that's part of it.
Yeah.
Maybe he's got a short memory.
I'll say maybe it's his ability to move on from a bad play.
Because the thing that people don't realize, and I'm not just saying this because I like him, like he got moved around a ton.
Yeah.
Especially early. And, you go from field to boundary.
Yeah, trying to find the right place for him.
And then he kind of got passed. But it was kind of not. And then it was you're going to travel. But then you didn't play. And that takes a toll if you let it.
Yeah, if you're not built that way.
If you let it.
Yeah.
He never let it bother him.
And that's probably something they liked.
Right? So when he gets the notification, hey,
don't need a babysitter.
Hey, you're going to Columbus. Like, what? Okay, I'm back on.
Yeah.
You like being able to function like that?
It's hard to do.
It's hard to do. But if you
it's super valuable.
I'm telling you.
Like super valuable.
I'm telling you. Like those guys that are so paranoid that they rather be caught with than without.
Yeah.
Those are the guys you got to roll with. Because so many things happen that you can't control. Your ability to hang in there is like 80% of it. That's why I'll never speak down on Malcolm Hartzog.
Yeah, because he's hanging in there.
Man,
a lot has been asked of him to do a lot of
his
different
body
things.
was a mess. This dude needed to rest.
Yeah.
Like his body's a mess. Right?
And physically, he's probably not equipped to do a lot of things they asked him to do.
Dude, it's just no downtime.
Yeah.
Yeah, you play 3 different positions. You got to know this. It's just taxing. So.
And he has to know that a lot of the things they're asking him to do are probably not going to make him look the best.
Yeah.
But he's the best one left to do it.
What did Coach Coop say on his way out the door? Hey man, this year I'd like to have Malcolm play here. We asked him to do a lot last year. I'd like to see him when he can just do this.
Yeah, ask him.
Coop said this on the way out.
Yeah, before he was done.
Yeah, and it didn't turn out to be that way.
No, because they needed him again.
They needed him. Yeah,
with injuries and everything to again kind of save their bundas a little bit.
So JJ's an interesting one because I think like if you just watch him test.
Yeah, physically people are gonna be enamored with him.
Yeah.
Another guy people are probably gonna be physically enamored with is Bly Hill. Just the positional size.
I don't know.
You don't think so?
I don't know.
I think positional size, people are going to just freak out.
And this isn't, oh man, DB, not a ringing endorsement. I haven't watched him enough.
Totally fair.
I just haven't. I don't know enough.
That's just a guy where you're going to see a frame and you're going to go, I'm going to pay attention. If you're a scout.
Yeah. I simply don't know enough.
And that's totally fair. I don't either. How do you feel about, is there anybody on either side of the line that you would be enamored with? Or that you'd want to keep an eye on at the very least?
You're going to laugh.
Yeah.
competitive stamina.
I think I know who you're going to say because I think it's who I was going to say.
Good size. I kind of like Lutovsky.
Oh, okay. No, that's not who I was going to say, but I like Lutovsky.
I kind of like Lutovsky. I feel like, I don't know if we appreciate him enough. He played good football.
He did. I mean, we said it yesterday. I know you're not a huge PFF guy, but he graded out the same as the Notre Dame guard that we're enamored with.
And look where Nebraska ran the ball in crunch time.
A lot of Lutovsky side.
You know, he would lead. Evans would pull. Like,
So-
I just kind of, I would love to chart that.
Can I? So you brought up one of the guys I was going to say, Justin Evans.
Yeah, but if you see Justin, like, just like from me to you, I don't know.
So physically, he's not.
He's small.
Physically, he's not going to blow people away. But how many
He's
times?
really, really short.
So he's not going to get drafted high. He's probably a third-day guy because physically he's not going to blow people away. But how many times do you see these interior offensive linemen that nobody cares about, that nobody's enamored with their physical stats or their testing or whatever, that you look at and you go, that guy's mean-spirited and he's going to keep going.
He's probably in the top 10 of guys like I would draft.
Yeah.
If I was starting my
But you're
team.
not going to be enamored with him as a scout.
I would he would be in my he'd be a top 10 pick.
Like if I had to bet on a guy, Justin Evans is probably one of the guys that I bet on to make it.
So I think I'll go back to something Coach Rule said Saturday that didn't seem to make a lot of sense when he was talking about 98 to 105 or whatever the number was he picked, the last 10. What did he say, 7 to 10 or
the last
whatever?
7 to 10 guys on the roster.
He said those are guys that make our program better.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Justin Evans is physically way better than a guy that just makes your program better.
Yes.
But his
mentality.
But his mentality is why I would draft him in the top 10.
Absolutely.
Because I need that guy. If I put that guy in my position group and we're doing drills, my drill work is going to be better.
100%.
I could be apt to walk away. Say, Justin, you got this? I'm going to go look at these guys over here.
Yeah.
And I know somebody's either going to get whooped or they're going to raise their level.
I buy that.
You know, that's what I said about Ty.
Mm-hmm.
You're not trying to replace his talent. You're trying to replace
the other stuff,
how he attacks
the intangibles,
the intangible stuff.
Yeah,
like that's what you're trying to, because they have a couple of more what I would call physically talented guys.
Oh, for sure, I think so.
A handful.
Yeah, like several.
Will you work like that though?
That's
will you have joy and going to work every day like that?
That's why I would keep an eye on Justin Evans. I understand he's probably a day 3 draft pick.
Listen, if Keona Davis,
that's a guy I want on my football team, works the way that Justin Evans works.
Yeah,
he's a first round pick.
He's incredible,
right?
I mean,
am I exaggerating?
It's so hard along the D line that I'd like to give myself margin for error, so I would say no. But you're not crazy.
Like it's not out of the question.
No, you're not crazy.
Like if he works like Justin Evans,
he's gifted.
He's going to be in that conversation.
He's gifted.
That's how we'll talk about him.
Great frame.
Yeah.
Long arms.
Yeah, I know. Like when they kind of said what they did about Keona Davis last offseason, that people sort of lost their minds a little bit, and that was probably not fair to put on him. But I do think physically he is as gifted along that D line, kind of as anybody they have.
I'm going to ask this question. My buddy asked me, "Aren't you trying to replace production? Where specifically?"
Maybe was he talking about the Ty Robinson?
I assume so, because 8-17 is right now.
Yeah, so that was probably right after the Ty Robinson comment. Because you said you're trying to replace the mentality and the intangibles.
When you think Ty Robinson, this is rhetorical. This isn't rhetorical. This is real.
Yeah, real time.
As the first thing you think of is to replace production.
No, not really. Now it depends on. I guess it depends on what you mean by production. Because if they want to play
like the statistical data. So that's his impact.
So that's what I said. It depends on what you mean by production. Because statistical data, I don't think that at all. Impact, maybe, like probably, but then also what he means to that team.
I need
you need clarification there.
Yeah,
because
I'm not quick to say yes or no.
If you're telling me the argument is impact, not stats, then I'll hear that. Because I don't like his stats were good; they weren't irreplaceable, right? His impact might be irreplaceable if you're asking the same guy or different guys to do the same thing, which is why we talked yesterday about trying to either get guys on the move, or maybe you're playing gaps versus head up, or maybe you're playing a 4 front versus a 3 front. Like you're going to have to do it a little differently because you don't have a guy like Ty. And so the impact, you can make an argument. I'll hear that.
So let me just give you something for clarity's sake for folks listening. We appreciate you. Hopefully this is why you listen. But so I told you that Coach Butler strikes me as a pressure guy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of that was because watching Bull stuff, they were always on the move, right? So a couple of days ago, I was like, hey, I want to go back to like bowl game preparation, just game planning and stuff. And I think part of the schematics or why they wanted to come downhill is because they wanted to protect the D line because they didn't know if they could play how they had played throughout the season, being short of numbers. So they were already thinking about how else can we play, given the fact we're missing 17 sacks and
Totally.
from three guys, the rotation. Like, how can we play if we have to hang in?
And,
right. So like that's a real thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we would sub sometimes along the D line, and I would do this even at the youth level. And, because we had guys that we wanted to play, and clearly they couldn't do everything that the defense called for. And I would ask our D-line coach, I'd say, hey, who's in at nose or who's in at the 3? Like, do we need some pressure to protect them? So you can do that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think they're going to have to be creative because they don't have a
I don't know. We talk as though they're like void of D-line talent, and they're not. They're not going to have to like make wholesale philosophical changes.
I think they're going to have to make some strategic changes.
Yeah.
Because, and again, we talked about this yesterday. There's a reason a lot of teams don't run a scheme that requires them to have this huge nose guard because there's not that many of those guys.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
There just isn't.
So here we go. Says I get wanting intangibles long term, but next year I need a guy to play the same. I'm not just talking about trackable stats, but are they occupying blocks? Are they forcing doubles to free up others?
Yeah, the impact.
I think we need a handful of guys to do that and not take a step back. Okay, so I'm vibing with the second part.
Yeah, the impact part.
Yeah,
right.
That's more impact.
Totally agree.
I agree.
And that's a tangible impact, but it's not a statistical impact.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, but I also think I agree with you. They have guys that could have similar impact, but it's going to look different.
Yeah.
Right? Riley Van Poppel is going to play a similar position, I think, to Ty Robinson, but he's going to look different.
And I get it, because it's not just as simple. Because I think what he's saying is, hey, man, it's not that easy.
For sure.
Okay, so, and I agree with that, too, because I always say this. It's easier to spell the man than to be the man. So, I mean, Ty could play 65 plays if he needed to. There aren't a lot of guys that can do that.
Not at that position.
He played 50. What did he play in the bowl games? 60? 55, 60?
Yeah. Not at that position.
At 300?
Yeah.
That's
hard.
That's hard.
That's really hard to do.
So
you're asking
I'm not saying, hey, RVP, go get your 55 snaps.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that.
But you say, hey, can I get 40?
Or something like that.
Can I get 40 from you?
Because it is much harder.
We'll get the other
to be the man than to spell the man.
20, 25. Yeah. Well, we talk about all the time with basketball.
I used to tease Rucker.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, not so much fun as a full-time starter now, is it?
I mean, you can make the same argument with James Williams we were talking about earlier. James Williams was put into positions where he should be successful. Like if he has to play full-time edge, he's a different player. Yeah, right?
Believe me.
Same thing with Prince Will.
Somebody was super complimentary, was that a couple weeks ago, about like starts and yards per carry for me? Like, I only had to do it a handful of times.
I think that was me, actually. I was nice to you one day.
I only had to do that a handful of times.
Yeah.
No, if I wanted to do that 13 games. I didn't train like that early on.
Sure.
I mean, right?
Yeah. It's different. We talk about it all the time with basketball, right? Being the number 2 on the scouting report is a lot different than being number 1 on the scouting report. Things look a lot different for you.
Yeah.
That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We will continue. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Radio. Halfway through the show here. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla on the Pillar Exterior stage, and we're brought to you by our friends at Centris Federal Credit Union. It is time to consider breaking up with your current financial situation and seeing what Centris Federal Credit Union has to offer. Just because it's Valentine's Day doesn't mean you have to stick it out with your financial institution. Maybe there's something better out there. Check out centrisfcu.org to see all their offerings and services and to chat with an expert about your specific situation. Centris is federally insured by NCUA. DB,
What's up?
there's something I wanted to get to, and we got sidetracked because somebody asked a good question in the chat, so appreciate Max. But we had been talking about last week our friend Dylan Raiola, somebody that we won't look at until at least another year away draft class, right? And you said something that got a little bit of run that I think people maybe didn't take the right way about Dylan. And then Coach Rule kind of said the exact same thing on Saturday about Dylan and some of the things he needed to work on.
Oh, I got you. So I've been on that one for a while.
You have.
Right? Like that was the guy that I said, this was the Brunts conversation.
The most improved. Or who?
I said, hey, we don't talk about this a ton, but how about if we want to look at development, how about we take Dylan?
Yeah.
Like I would probably start with Dylan as the most important developmental piece in this program.
And I'm not going to fight you.
I mean,
I'm not.
But nobody. So at the time, nobody really agreed.
I thought there were other guys.
And there were also other good ideas.
But I didn't think you were crazy.
Where I almost got off.
Yeah, you did almost cave.
I almost got off of Dylan. I was like, okay, yeah, I like him.
I said Keona Davis, and you kind of vibed with that one.
I like the Riley Van Poppel one. I like
somebody said Gatula, I think.
Somebody gave me a good old. Was it Gatula?
I think so. Because I think they're like, hey, if you've just got a left tackle that's like a dude.
Oh yeah, great. And I kind of was vibing.
Yeah,
with
that makes sense.
I was like, I didn't even scoff at Brunts' Emmett Johnson.
Sure.
Because I was like, oh, shoot, if they could run the ball like that.
Like if you get the flashes where he looks really good most of the time, Emmett Johnson's super valuable.
And so I almost got off of it. But then, after the basketball game and being in the locker room in Kansas, just all this other stuff, I was like, you know what? Nope. I'm going back. I'm going back to young Dylon. And I do remember, so I didn't get a ton of pushback on like me saying it. I did get a couple of questions on if people would hear that and think that I said he wasn't in shape.
Well, especially because not originally on the development, but later when you started to specify, like, what's it look like if he gets an elite level condition?
Yeah.
Right?
And I talked about your best players being
working the hardest.
And I said, imagine if you add elite level fitness and elite level shape with the talent, the charisma, the natural leadership.
And to be fair, the game prep. I do think it seems like he spends an ungodly amount of time watching film and like doing the mental prep of being a quarterback.
100%.
Because
he's pretty bright.
Everybody you talk to, I mean, we heard it from Ty Robinson at Senior Bowl last week. They're like, oh man, that guy's
Well, how about the receivers that say
film.
that he's like, this guy's like the first one at the stadium?
Yes, like that's so when and somebody asked me after you said that last week, they go, is Dylan not work very hard? And I go, no. I think it's that's not what you were saying at all.
No.
I think we heard Coach Rule kind of expound on that last week, right? On Saturday.
Do you realize I did not go back and listen to that until you told me.
After the show yesterday.
You go, hey, your guy said exactly what you said. And I was like
strangely specific.
Hey,
because
Shano, do you have that clip ready? All right. So
before he can make it his team, I think he has to make it his offense. And before he makes it his offense, I think he has to make it like his receiving core. And so, I think it's, him this morning being here at 9, or 8 or whatever time working out and leading those guys. And so, I went to the Supernova game last night and he's over there with Heinrich and they're sitting courtside, which is great as long as you're in the building this morning throwing, which I knew they were. And so I think when you see, your best players, and Dylan's certainly one of our best players, when you see them paying the price each and every day, and that's what I mean by gratitude. Like, I'm grateful to be here. So because I'm grateful, it's not that I say thank you. It's that I work my tail off each and every day because I'm trying to get better. So yeah, Dylan's got to get the receivers there every day. Year one, you're like, I asked them, 5 guys showed up. Well, that's not leadership. That's trying to be a leader. Leadership is when you get everybody there. And I think he'll do a great job at that. At the same time, mastering himself, getting quicker, getting his weight to the proper weight, continuing to learn the offense, mastering his fundamentals. And, now we have two other quarterbacks in there with him, mentoring TJ, mentoring Marco, and just in terms of what we do. And obviously Jalen Gramstad's came back, which is awesome because he'll be a great vet for there.
So that's exactly what you were talking about.
100%.
Almost word for word.
100%.
Because you go, hey, the Kansas City locker room's great if you're getting the rest of the work in.
Yep.
What did he say? Supernova game is great. You better be working tomorrow morning.
You can rock the Tominaga jersey.
You can do whatever you want
with the mock turtleneck.
as long as you're getting the work in.
Like your young guys got to see that you're paying a price.
Yes.
Yes.
And
what you said, Coach.
What else did he get really specific about? He goes, I need him to get a little bit quicker. I need his weight to be where his weight needs to be.
Yep.
And you know 100%. How many times we say this? Coach Rule is not saying anything to us that those guys haven't said a million times before.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Dylan knows.
Yeah.
Dylan knows everything that Coach Rule already said. But that's to your point about the development of Dylan Raiola.
I am glad he said that because it needed to be said because I didn't want to be the guy. And listen, those guys are my friend. I got a ton of respect for Donnie. Dom and I obviously talk quite a bit. But we have to be able to be critical.
Sure.
And not fear repercussions. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, listen, he's got to play better.
He's got to play better, and there's some things he can do in the offseason to help him play better next year.
And when you're that capable,
you almost owe it.
So that's probably more Coach Rule's
fair
vantage point, which I understand. I would say it like this, just being my own man. I would say there is such power in bringing others along with you when you go first.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I totally vibe with that. Especially when you're that talented.
Yes.
Because
that's why I would start with him.
It's one thing if
I'm very glad he said that because you have to say the quiet part out loud.
Sometimes, you a lot of times you do.
And I'm consistent, man. It's the same thing I said about Coach Rule. I don't want that guy having too much power. You have to have somebody that can check him.
Yep. It's a good thing. That's why it's a good thing Phil Snow's here.
Right? I don't want Dylan having too much power. You have to have somebody that can check him. Part of that is, hey, I'm conditioned, right? Super Pavlovian, where I watch guys cuss T-phrase out, or I watch, somebody want to, I watch Jason want to slap Wiegert, or
100%.
I watch Wiltz want to fight Jason Pete.
Nobody can be untouchable.
You can't be above reproach.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
Right.
And
it's one thing if Jalen Gramstad works that hard. It's a totally different, and no offense to Jalen Gramstad, I'm sure that Coach Rule's thrilled that he's back this year. But it's another thing if Dylan Raiola works that hard.
Yeah.
Because, and here's the thing, I do think Dylan works really hard. I think it's a focusing of his efforts in the right spots.
So I would bet you know what it is.
What's that?
So it's paying enough. It's having enough self-awareness to do the things
that suck,
that haven't historically been good at,
and the things that maybe you don't like as much. You don't like
that. That's where the real power
is. It's
is.
really easy. I'm sure he loves throwing with his guys, and that's useful. That's good work to get in.
Yeah.
But it's easy work because he loves it, right? I'm guessing that dude loves watching film. From everything you hear, it sounds like that dude loves watching film. That's easy because he loves it. You know what's easy for me? I loved bench press day. When I was a power lifter, loved bench press day.
You know what's not natural?
What's that?
Cheering for other people that play your position.
Yeah.
When you get good at that, that's when the magic happens.
Yeah. Now, that's hard for him now because he's not really in competition with anybody else in that room.
But guess what? So let me tell you something.
But you hear mentoring?
He is, but he isn't.
Yeah.
He's in competition with doing what doesn't come natural, and that's to lead young pups. That's his challenge.
Yeah.
That's the equivalent to me being able to cheer LP or Clinton or
maybe
Amon or whomever else on.
Maybe.
Right? Or Abdul to look at Reggie Ball and say, hey, man, go get him, Reg.
Yeah.
Or, Corey Dixon to look at Abdul and say, hey, man, go make that play. Or William Washington to look at Tremaine Bell and say, oh, my gosh, you're the vertical tight end threat now? I would like for that to be me. But, hey, Tree, do you.
You go get him.
Right? That's tough.
But then
that's tough.
You're competitive as hell the rest of the week.
Yeah.
But day of, you got to be supportive.
That's tough.
Right? That's a tough place to live. That's a tricky line to walk.
Yeah. Hey, Buck, Tyrone Williams, go get him.
Yeah.
It's hard.
That's going to be something really interesting to see as Dylan Raiola develops and progresses this year. Can he walk that line? That's DB. I'm Ravi. We've got Nick Athan coming up next. He's our Chiefs insider. Start talking a little Super Bowl on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're live here from Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We are joined now by Nick Athan. He's a Chiefs insider for Chiefs Blitz. Nick, how are you this morning?
Hey, I'm doing great, guys. How about you?
Good, Nick. I was telling these guys off air in our former life, the very first time we talked to you in Omaha, this was at the very beginning of this Chiefs run, and I have to give you a little bit of credit because I think some of our non-Chiefs fans that were listening to that segment where you were basically saying, "Hey, look, they're just getting started. They're on the cusp of something special." And 3 years later, they're on the verge of doing something that's never been done. That's incredible.
Yeah, this is just it's a great time to be a Chiefs fan, and it's remarkable. I didn't realize this today, but there's only 5 players left in the Super Bowl 54 team, and they've won 2 Super Bowls since, and on the cusp of winning 3 in a row. Just the job that Andy Reid has done. Of course, when you've got a unicorn like Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Chris Jones as your staples, it certainly helps. But, Patrick Mahomes is special. The Chiefs were brilliant in getting him from Buffalo and making that trade. And, you just kind of sense it. And for a guy like me, my history. I spent 50 years between Super Bowls.
Yep.
And when the Chiefs won Super Bowl 54, I'm like, I'm good. I've lived a modern version of it.
You're like Cub fan.
Yeah, I'm like a Cub fan, and the history of the Super Bowl 4 team is just, those are friends of mine: Hank Stram, Len Dawson, Bobby Bell. People that were part of my life growing up and into my later years. It's just like. Sense with Patrick that after he won the first one, that what he's built to do. And for the Chiefs fans of today, enjoy every second, every moment, every game, every minute, because at some point it will end. But I think the Chiefs still have more to do.
Nick, I'm curious because this has obviously been kind of a strange Chiefs season in the sense that it felt like they were always getting by on pretty thin margins. I think if I remember correctly, it's the largest differential between point differential and wins, I think, in league history, if I remember hearing that stat right. And I just look at this team and I go, okay, I understand all that. And still, because it is Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, none of it, at no point did I feel like it was fluky. Like, how can both of those things be true at the same time?
It just doesn't matter to these guys. I mean, they have the ability to shut out every distraction, every piece of noise. They don't care about statistics. They don't care about personal stats. They don't care how they win as long as they win. And, I think what's the most impressive about this 3-year run in particular is every given Sunday, other teams give the Chiefs their best. And even though the Chiefs, and we can all admit, have not played their best during the regular season at times, when it comes to the third or the fourth quarter, and somebody has to make a plays on special teams, offense or defense, somebody just does it. If Spags needs to dial up a certain blitz, he does it. If Andy Reid needs to call a great play, he does it. And throughout the entire season, these last 3 years, the Chiefs just understand the job one is to win the division, get as close to the number 1 seed as possible, to get to the chance to be in the Super Bowl. No other franchise, no other team in the NFL has that belief, has that experience, has that drive. They all want to be like the Chiefs. They criticize the Chiefs. They say all these negative things about officiating, and they're just not that good, and they're not blowing teams away. W's matter, and that's it.
Nick, let me ask you something, because this is the part that flies under the radar. In full disclosure, this is the Dodger fan in me. And guys, the low-hanging fruit is like, oh, gosh, that the NFL salary cap and baseball, it's apples to oranges. And I'm like, you guys aren't listening. What I'm talking about is massaging numbers, right, relative to the sport, deferred money, the way you set up Patrick Mahomes' contract, quietly converting like Jawan Taylor's salary to a bonus to free up money, to bring on DeAndre Hopkins and absorb the hit while restructuring Jawan Taylor's. Things like we don't really pay attention to. How? And I'm like, fudge, I want Friedman to be like Veach, right? Like, this guy's a monster. 3 years ago, you guys were up in arms about what to do with Chris Jones and who to bring back in the secondary. 2.5 years later, he's making $19.5 million. He's arguably the best interior defensive lineman in football. He's still on your roster. You guys are only 26 years old by average, and you could have $17 million cap space next year. I mean,
yeah, it's probably going to
16-1, 16-2 projected. I mean, you have a surplus.
We don't know what the cap number is going to be yet. I'm assuming it's going to increase by probably 8 to 10 million based on the revenue especially the gambling revenue that's really bolstered the pocketbooks of the owners. But Brett Veach is a master at the salary cap.
It's incredible.
He's got a tough haul. This is going to be tough. He's got 4 free agent wide receivers. Trey Smith wants a boatload of money. You're going to have to sign McDuffie, probably Karlaftis. There's only so much money to go around. And, he's going to have to be really, really creative again. But look at these players. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins. It's so much fun to watch a guy like that the Chiefs can afford to bring in midseason, who has appreciated every moment, doesn't care how many passes he catches, just wants to help his team win a Super Bowl. And he finally gets an opportunity after 12 years in the league to play in the Super Bowl. So when you look at how Veach runs everything, he's always a year or two ahead of everybody else. And that's what makes him so great. And that's why they're in this position.
Nick, I want to move on to the actual matchup against the Eagles here real quick with the last few minutes we have with you. And I'm curious because, I've watched the Eagles all year. I've watched the Chiefs all year. Is there anything about the Eagles that, as somebody that covers the Chiefs and is invested in the Chiefs, scares you about this matchup?
Not really. I think the Chiefs are lazy.
There he is.
The Chiefs are laser focused. If you watched opening night last night, and you looked at when Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts were on stage together, you could just tell. Patrick's like, dude, you got no chance. And Andy Reid's next to Nick Sirianni. It's like, he doesn't respect that guy one bit.
Well, I think part of it is because he's used to carving up Fangio, but we'll see if it's still apples to apples.
Fangio's 0-8 against Patrick Mahomes. He's going to be 0-9. Now, listen, this is the best Eagles. This is a better Eagles team than what the Chiefs faced 2 years ago.
Completely agree.
The problem is the Chiefs are on the destiny track. What they're going to do, there's no way. I mean, think about this. They won the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. It's been three-peat for almost a full year. And though the players don't really talk about it, it's there. The expectation of the fan base, it's there. The expectation of ownership. The first thing Clark Hunt said when they went to training camp was, you have an opportunity to make history. We're going to do everything we can to support that. And trust me, Clark Hunt, he wants this badly. He wants to shove it up, the Patriots dynasty and the Steelers dynasty and the 49ers dynasty and the Cowboys dynasty and say, we're the greatest ever. Should they three-peat, the greatest NFL dynasty in NFL history, period, bar none, it's over. And then people are going to say, well, can they four-peat? I mean, it's just, this game is so significant for the organization, for the coaching staff and the players about legacy. They get it. The Eagles 2 years ago were really happy just to be in the Super Bowl, and they didn't really practice hard during the week, and Nick Sirianni didn't really know what to do. And now he's in a similar situation where he's got a little bit better team, better roster. You got Saquon Barkley, who's made all the difference in the world, and he has been brilliant. And so they're going to ride that train. Hopefully that's what, if they're smart, they will. But they may want to go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes in the passing game. So, again, look at everything in its totality, and I'm big into the NFL gods, and I'm big into the destiny and fate. Chiefs, this moment, they projected this moment, they believed in this moment, and I just can't see a scenario where they lose this football game on Sunday.
That's our guy, Nick Athan, Chiefs Insider for ChiefsBlitz.com. Nick, appreciate the time as always, and I hope you enjoy the game this weekend.
I'm certainly going to.
Thanks, Nick.
Appreciate it. That's Nick. Coming up next, we will get into hour number 3 and our guy, Mike J. Schaefer from Husker 24/7. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. It's Hurrdat Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We should be joined shortly by our friend Mike Schaefer from Husker 24/7. But, it's funny because, Nick was kind of playing it cool there for a second. And then, I asked
the fandom kicked in.
I asked the Eagles question. He's like, nah, I'm not worried.
I don't know. I think it's going to be a fantastic game.
The Eagles are pretty good.
Yeah, they are.
Like, the Eagles are pretty good.
We keep trying to tell ourselves they're not, but all they do is keep winning.
They keep winning. They're pretty dynamic offensively, and their defense is better.
In the run game.
In the run game, and their defense is better. Like, I think their defense is better than it was 2 years ago.
Imagine if Dean was playing.
Yeah.
But I'll see what they can get from Graham. Is he going to be a situational pass rusher? Coming back from a torn bicep this quick is almost unheard of.
Maybe he got some of that deer antler spray that Ray Lewis was rocking about a decade ago.
And Graham's retiring after this year.
Yeah.
But he is definitely their leader up front.
One last hurrah there.
The only blueprint we've seen be successful is the front four. And that was Tampa.
I mean, that's kind of not just with the Chiefs, but you want to go back to Brady. What did the Giants have that the
Strahan and Umanor and
and JPP that the Patriots couldn't deal with is pressure with 4 will cause everybody fits. It breaks everything, right? If you can consistently get pressure with 4, it breaks everything. And so that'll be really interesting to see. I'm excited. I'm not a Chiefs fan, but I do find myself kind of rooting for the Chiefs this week.
Do you?
Excited.
For nostalgia?
I really like Andy Reid.
Gosh, it's funny how he changed the narrative on him basically overnight.
He did, but I also so I was earlier on Andy Reid than most because I felt like Philadelphia did not appreciate what he did there, and I thought he got kind of a raw deal, and then B, I for a long time, what really turned me around on Andy Reid was the Michael Vick experience.
Yeah,
the fact that he was able for like a year and a half to turn Michael Vick into the thing I always hoped Michael Vick could be, and it looked incredible. That to me was like, oh, Andy Reid's really good at this. Because I think there was a time where it's like, I'm not sure if it's Andy Reid. I don't know if it's Donovan McNabb. I don't know what it is really.
He won with some quarterbacks that we kind of were like, but.
Yeah, Alex Smith. They won a lot with Alex Smith.
I mean, people.
And I like Alex Smith.
I think Philly fans appreciate Andy Reid way more than Donovan McNabb. And
now, do you think they did at the time?
No.
That's my point.
Until the fitness game and the throwing up and the needing to take a timeout.
Yes.
And then people question McNabb, but that was closer to the tail end of his run in Philly.
Like in the stretch where they were really, really good, I think people thought it was more about McNabb than it was about Andy Reid.
People forget though.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why aren't you running
management?
Why aren't you running the football?
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't Brian Westbrook get his touches?
Clock management.
How are you getting away from Staley? The clock management is horrible.
I did like Deuce Staley.
The narrative changed almost overnight.
Really quickly on our guy, Andy Reid. But I did think he got an unfair shake in Philadelphia. And then what kind of led me to rooting for him was I felt like he was too good of a coach not to have a Super Bowl. And for some reason that mattered to me. And now, of course, he got the first couple at my expense. So I don't love, or two of the first three out at my expense. So I don't love that part as much. But I do think, like, there's a part of me, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Belichick, there is a part of me that is more impressed with Andy Reid than I was with Belichick.
No, I get it.
And I don't know exactly what it is, but there's a part of me that has been more impressed with Andy Reid. We're joined now by a guy I'm always impressed with, my guy Mike J. Schaefer, Husker 24/7. What's up, Schaefer?
Hey, sorry about that. I apologize.
Sorry, I just thought you didn't love us anymore.
No. If I didn't love you, I'd have just ghosted you completely.
Shave,
what we
where are you headed?
I'm nowhere. I had something that was going on this morning that ended up not happening. I could have switched over to the to video, but I realized it kind of late, and then I was late for the phone call. Basically, I need a redo to start over my morning, so if we can just go back a couple hours, start this over.
We're rewinding. Hey, we were talking about kind of impact, or not impact. We were talking about development and in-house development and like kind of where you were starting. I'm kind of on that Dylan Raiola thing about, elite level fitness and how leading young guys and kind of the next transition. If your poster guy is your best development story. After you heard Coach Rule talk about what Coach Raiola, what Dylan needed to do in order to kind of take the next step, do you feel more encouraged about the direction of accountability and kind of leadership, knowing that him telling us probably wasn't the first time that Dylan had heard that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the encouragement can't really come until the results follow, right? Like it definitely, it sounds good. It seems to trend in the right direction, but like all of these things, I mean, and this is sort of the nature of the off-season conversation, we're sort of just needing to see results that follow, because there's enough things that get said every off-season now that it doesn't feel like the follow-up is necessarily always there. And I'm not saying this is going to be one of those things, but again, it sounds good. Let's see what it all kind of looks like when we get to spring football, and then let's see what it looks like when we get to the summer, and let's see what it looks like when we get to the first game. I mean, some of this is, we always want the answer to be immediate, and it's all going to be gradual. And so I'm trying to avoid overreacting to everything, which is difficult. And so this is what you want to hear, I guess, is the answer that I've stumbled through there. I'm doing a great job on this interview, guys. You should really have me back again.
No, I think that's
I think it's fair, right?
Yeah, that's a fair answer,
it's
because
perspective.
The gradual versus immediate perspective is important, right? Because you're right, we do want everything to kind of just snap our fingers one day. It's like, hey, we had a great offseason, so 10 wins next year? And it's like, it doesn't always work that linearly, right? I do want to say, outside of Dylan, we've talked a lot about development and things like that. Somebody asked us a question in the chat. I'm putting you on the spot here, Mike J., so I apologize. But
that's fine.
They asked us, of the guys that will be draft eligible after next year, if you're an NFL scout, who kind of piques your interest on this roster?
Oh, that is interesting.
So basically,
I think
it's the 2023 recruiting class, right? So it starts with Van Poppel's
or older. Yeah,
Van Poppel's group or older.
Aren't we kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern with much of that class, like to see what they are?
Yeah,
because that 23 group was Matt Rule's first class, in the sense that he got here in November and he put it together. They lost some of those guys already now in the transfer portal. Riley Van Poppel, we'll find out more of what he is after the redshirt year as we get through spring and summer. Those offensive linemen haven't really had a chance to develop. The wide receivers in that class are no longer with the program for the most part, or if they are, they haven't made an impact yet. You don't have, it's just a very different group group when you look at that 2023. Like the obvious answer is Riley Van Poppel because we've seen him play a little bit more, and he's got the physical size, but we don't really know what the ceiling is for Riley Van Poppel.
Sure.
And you could have always argued he was going to be a high floor guy immediately, but that doesn't necessarily mean high ceiling. So I'm kind of struggling with that one because in that group, they've had a lot of change. Like, I don't know where else in that roster, we're talking about.
Can I toss some names at you?
Here. Yeah, go ahead, because I'm struggling to come up with some other people because I'm thinking of the line, and obviously Prince Will has left.
So
some different people of that nature.
The guy, and we didn't bring him up, DB, but a guy that I'm thinking about is what do you like? What's the ceiling on a Cam Lenhart?
I think that Cam Lenhardt's ceiling is a pretty good college football player, but I don't know that I see a guy that is a practice squad player for the NFL at this point in time. I mean, first of all, we need to see consistency throughout, even like an 8-game stretch. This is a guy who's undersized playing what he is at Nebraska. He was undersized when he was at IMG. His intangibles seem to significantly outweigh what his physical projectables are. He's someone that I think was well-liked in the locker room at IMG, and I think that's carried over at Nebraska. But I don't know that I don't think his physical projection is something that makes NFL scouts go, okay, we want to watch this. So then the production has to be there because the intangibles enough aren't going to get you in the NFL. So I think there's a lot with Cam Lenhardt that remains to be seen, but I think the upside is he could be a really nice player for Nebraska. I don't know if I see him as an NFL guy.
That's exactly how I feel about Sierra Wright. Although I think the talent ceiling may be a little higher than Cam's just because of the body type, but I think Sierra is, and this is clearly no disrespect. His productivity may exceed his skill, even though he was highly thought of. I get it coming out of high school. Like you look at him and you watch kind of his mannerisms and his body type. I don't know. To me, he plays better than he looks.
I think that's fair. Like one of the interesting things about him is it's not like he immediately walked into Nebraska and took someone's job. They kind of had to shuffle things around with the injury last year, and you played Buford at corner, and I'm fascinated to know what that looks like here in 2025 if he's going to go back to safety. So I could see that with Sierra Wright as well. And again, when we're talking like he's not 6'2". He doesn't have long arms. He doesn't immediately jump off the page. Like when we talk about the NFL, and I think we fall into this trap a lot, we assume that guys that are productive in college are also going to be what they want in the NFL. And it's the same as the high school thing. You don't have to be a great production player in high school to have the attention of college teams because they're projecting you out. Braylon Prude barely played for his high school, and he's on a Power 4 football team and was traveling last year. So I look at the same thing with the NFL. Like if Sierra Wright is a productive college football player, I don't think it's a guarantee that he would be in a defensive backfield in the NFL. And again, like even to make the practice squad, I think you would have to run, really nice times and everything like that. And he's a unique situation where we don't even know if the NFL is really what his aim is going to be.
Schaefer, so let me give you I'm glad we're talking about defensive backs here because you brought up some interesting things. There's some guys like Sierra Wright that have been pretty highly productive, maybe don't have the measurables. Then you have a couple guys that are going to have some physical attributes that the NFL is going to be really interested in, but certainly have not produced yet. If you're an NFL scout, are you looking more at Sierra Wright, Jeremiah Charles, or Bly Hill?
Bly Hill. I mean, Bly Hill's the guy, right? Like that's how Stanley John Baptiste goes from wide receiver to corner to second round pick because you can't teach being that long. You can't teach, so the idea is if it clicks. Now, his washout potential compared to the other two is a lot higher, right? Like that's how this works. It's a boom or bust kind of projection thing. Like Sierra Wright is the safest of those three players. Jeremiah Charles, I'm interested in because I think they like the effort. I think they like what he's doing at practice. It just hasn't translated a whole lot on the football field. You know who that happens for? A lot of football players. Like he needs more reps. And it's the same for Bly Hill. I mean, we don't know enough about Bly Hill, but I'm just saying if we're going straight projection, I think an NFL team is going to be interested in that body type before they move down the line to Sierra Wright, who's played a lot more and now has some production to show for it, or even Jeremiah Charles, who might test really well but hasn't really shown up on the film.
Schaefer, when you're watching kind of this offseason unfold, and this started a couple months ago when I asked, hey, man, who's the poster child for development if Nebraska has a successful 2025 season? Would your answer be the same 2 months ago as it is today after kind of watching this roster unfold?
Is there any chance you have it written down what I would have said 2 months ago?
I think you were the first one to say Riley Van Poppel.
Yeah, well, and that becomes such a stock answer for me because he's a guy that I really believe in. I think that he represents an area where I expect Nebraska is going to be better than what they'll get credit for coming in. Like, I just think Matt Rhule is going to have good defensive line. So that's kind of a stock answer. If I were to change it, I think right now, with everything I know now, here on February, whatever day this is, 4th, how things go for Justin Evans could be really interesting for Nebraska's offensive line. Because if you can put Henry Lutovsky on one side and Rocco Spindler on the other side, and Justin Evans is a really good interior offensive lineman, suddenly you have 3 of your 5 spots filled really well. You have kind of a unique offensive set with how Dana Holgerson wants to do things, and he can play to what his strengths are, which means sometimes they're going to run the football. I mean, obviously they're going to throw it too, but I kind of like what that picture could look like if Justin Evans can make a sizable jump this offseason and go from pretty solid contributor to what if he's just a rock-steady center. I mean, I think that position gets undervalued as to everything you have to do and what that means. And he's athletic enough to play it, and he can move people around. He's a former wrestler. Scott Frost loved him. That's how he ended up on this roster to begin with, because he sort of got dropped by a lot of programs that were high on him early, and he didn't keep growing. But I think there's a solid offensive lineman there, and I think that could really kind of change how you feel about the offensive line. If you can say, okay, we got questions at tackle, but feel great about the 3 guys that they have in the middle of the offensive line.
Schaefer, if I had to give you either all-conference status for Justin Evans or Gunnar Gatula, who are you taking?
For one of those 2?
Yeah, you get one, and one of them's all-conference level. The other one, you have no idea what they are.
I mean, you got to pick the tackle, right? Like, if this is a value chart.
I mean, yes, but
if you can tell me Nebraska has an all-conference left tackle or right tackle, which they haven't had in some time, I think you have to take that. But it's closer than it probably seems on the surface.
Schaefer, if you're kind of, did you expect when you kind of heard what may or may not go on with the spring game to be as conversation worthy as it's turning out to be?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is a fan base that lost its mind when the music that plays as the team walks out for the pregame was changed slightly or words were added to it. This is a fan base that constantly gets in the debate if it's actually worse for the program if companies buy up extra tickets to give to people to use so the sellout streak still exists. Everything gets debated in this fan base, and that's what makes it unique. And the fervor and the passion is what makes it stand out. And with that, you have people that are really upset about a 15th practice in the spring that may or may not be a game atmosphere because they may or may not associate childhood memories with it, or they may or may not have made it part of their staple in the spring. And so I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised because in culture right now, anytime you move away from something that seems to be more physical to something that seems less physical, we have to have that conversation too. Then we have to have the conversation about how NIL is ruining everything. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that this is a big conversation. I'm also not surprised that this is going away. I mean, the spring game has served its purpose and is a relatively stale concept, except for the fact that its only real value is that it's the 15th practice for a football program. So, Nebraska was able to turn it into an event, and now they're going to have to adapt. And I think that's fine. Like, that's how life is. It wasn't going to stay this way forever. But I'm not surprised that there's a conversation surrounding it.
Schaefer, can I make the argument to you that they're actually, especially in today's climate of you're kind of asking more from your fan base, whether it's financial support or just the cost of doing business in major college football, that giving your fans something tangible that they want is of real value?
I think you can give them something, but it's not going to be what it always was. I think you have to be able to adapt and be creative and come up with different things. I think there's lots of ways that you can do things that are palatable for the fans. I think you can move a scrimmage to August and have it serve as some kind of NIL fundraiser, or do it in that way, and then that becomes a tradition for however long that lasts. I don't think we need to get stuck with this mindset. This is how it was. This is how it needs to be. Nebraska's special because people come in on the spring to go to a practice. Like, I understand that it's unique here, but that hasn't won you football games. That doesn't change the equation of what really matters, which is the season in the fall. So why would we draw a line in the sand and basically say, hey, this is too far. We can't do this. I just don't. If it's not for the betterment of the program, then I don't know that we need to spend that much time debating about whether it's a necessary thing.
I think
because I don't think this is happening everywhere else in the country either.
I think Coach Rule would tell you the one thing that gives him pause is he's got to figure out how to still make that a pretty substantial recruiting weekend, right? So I think, to your point, that about program betterment. Mm-hmm. That's where his interest lies.
Yeah, and so how do you continue to create a recruiting environment? Well, I mean, they were able to have a pretty successful one in March of 23 that had nothing to do with the game. They've had a lot of success getting recruits come to practices throughout the spring, and we're talking guys from all over the country that eventually would come on official visits. I think you could still create and maybe even effectively have your own really cool recruiting weekend and find some way to tie it into, the Nebraska fan base, be it through a baseball game or whatever else that you can possibly do there. That's what I mean. You have to get creative.
Yeah, because I don't.
When one door closes, another one opens. Like, this is where you make your money if you're in the recruiting department or in marketing or you're over there. It's not sitting around crying about what's already done. It's figuring out what's next. Be an innovator. When Nebraska football really mattered in college football context, they were innovative. So innovate. Like, that's, I know it's easy for me to say that, but there are no bad ideas here. The bad idea is to continue to cry about what's already done. The hay's in the barn, if you will. Now make something of it.
So I don't think they're going to be chomping at the bit to cross off a line item, right, for a revenue generator like the spring game. But I do think in the back of their mind, if they can save money on one hand, keep injuries down and exposure down, depending on whatever you believe, the part about what Coach Rule said, you think they're in the back of their mind somewhere they're thinking, okay, now we're going to calculate alcohol sales into this. And like I said, we don't want to cross off a line item, but we can make it up in some other capacities.
Yeah, this is, again, like you're going to have to figure out that revenue from somewhere. Now, we could get into the whole conversation about how much revenue the spring game really should generate when it's a practice, and you're basically charging people for parking and for concessions and for everything else and treating it like an 8th home game. But I think it's imperative that you look forward on this and that you do come up with some different things. I think alcohol is going to be able to help stem some of the tide. They're certainly having a conversation about having things like the Savannah Bananas play in Memorial Stadium, or concerts, or Bud Crawford, or whatever it is. I mean, there's different events and different things that you can do to make Memorial Stadium profitable isn't the right word that I want to use here, but to make up some of that revenue. Again, it just comes down to, you can't dwell on where they should have known this is where things were going anyway.
Yeah.
Because I just don't think the appetite for spring football is what it used to be, even around here, but certainly in college football in general. And so I don't know if you weren't already planning on this moving away. I just don't feel like they would have been forward thinking,
That's our guy, Mike Schaefer, Husker 24/7. Schaefer, appreciate it as always. We'll talk soon.
All right, guys, have a good one. Thanks for having me on, putting up with my BS.
Thanks, Mike J.
That's our guy, Mike Schaefer from Husker 24/7. We'll have more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Radio. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. It is time for Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. Check out warhorsecasino.com. They've got promotions going on all the time, especially for the big game. And you can check out a full list of their house rules. Go to the casino in Lincoln or in Omaha to place your sports bets. DB, you know what I'm betting on today?
Talk to me.
I think we better bet on the fact that Nebraska needs to be pretty careful about the decisions they make at the cost of fans.
Oh, yeah.
Because
I think you're right.
I love Schaefer. We love Schaefer. I think he was being a little dismissive of the spring game and how people feel about it. Because there is a lot of nostalgia attached to it, and he sort of hinted at that, although it seemed a little dismissively. But here's the thing. For what Nebraska asks of this fan base, sometimes the fan service is important. That is a real, tangible thing. It's not just a throwaway.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to ask for all the money and all the NIL and the increasing seat licenses and to be patient with stadium renovations and all of this, right? If you're going to ask all the things Nebraska asks of their fan base, then you better service the fans to a certain extent, right? Because the fans are the only reason Nebraska matters at all. Right? There's no earthly reason for Nebraska football to matter. There isn't. Our guys, Pick Six Previews, Brett Ciancia, they just did their Blue Bloods poll last week again. Guess who still ranked in the Blue Bloods?
Yeah. So was that
72%?
Yeah, 71-7.
72%
Not
of
to
people.
go out Jacob Badillo on you.
Well, actually, we had a Stephen Young moment there. 71-7 out of 170,000 football fans, because you're not following Pick Six Previews if you're not a nerd football fan, right? 100,000 votes, still over 70% of those people view Nebraska as a blue blood. Probably more than people in this state view Nebraska as a blue blood still. And so the only reason that matters, the only reason that exists, there's no other reason Nebraska should matter in the grand landscape of college football. It's not a big population base. Despite having some really good stretches of high school athletes, it's not a consistent high school talent producer. There's nothing here that should tell you Nebraska should be a blue blood. But guess what? 72% of the country still thinks they are. Do you know why? Because of the fan base. Without the fan base, Nebraska is North Dakota State. And that's not a slight. That's a great program, but the magnitude is several times different than what we see here. So I want to be real careful about being dismissive of a thing the fans absolutely love, which is the spring game. And not to mention, somebody brought this up in the chat, for a lot of people, that's the first game they've ever been to. It's the first game I'd ever been to. We went in elementary school. We did the Dare Pledge on the field and everything. Like that's embedded in my memory as a core Nebraska football memory in a game that I understand doesn't matter. But it's still there, right? It grows the love for the program. You better be real careful taking those things away.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like first memories. I don't really have one.
Sure.
I think taking the picture on the bench with Roger Craig and was one, but I think in my head, like this is just, hey, spring game thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is, how else were you going to win a job?
Yeah, what does it cost you?
No, because that's all I know.
Yeah.
Right? You lay it on the line in the winter so you can go win a job in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to recalibrate my thought process.
Yeah.
That's why it's so interesting to me to see how they trim.
I also do think there's tangible benefits. Like, was it beneficial for you? Because you didn't enroll in the spring, right?
No.
You enrolled in the fall.
No.
So it's going to be a little different. But for guys that enroll in the spring, which is a lot of guys now, having kind of that first taste of Memorial Stadium before it counts with that atmosphere, like that feels like it would be really beneficial. Yeah. Like if I'm a true freshman Dylan Raiola last year, I probably was more comfortable in August because I got to experience April. Like I didn't walk out for the first time in Memorial Stadium with it packed, and I get it's 60 versus 90 or whatever, right? But if I'm walking out there for the first time and it's for all the marbles, like that feels different.
I wonder how much Demetrius Bell plays into
and Bly Hill. We brought up Bly Hill too.
Coach Rule's thought process.
But
Yeah, I know what people are going to say.
we see guys get hurt in practice all the time.
You know who doesn't say that?
Who?
Guys that are actually playing.
Okay, that's fine.
Now, some of
And
us,
I don't know.
Some of us old heads might, like Verzal would say that.
Yeah, that's what Verse said. Right?
Verz would say
You know
that.
what you signed up for.
Yeah,
Go play.
Verz would say that. But I do think the more times you I look at it more as not what you do, but how the frequency in which you do it.
Mm-hmm.
The more times you put yourself in harm's way, the more opportunity you have to get hurt.
For sure.
So hear my heart. I'm not saying one more practice is harder than the other, or if you call it a scrimmage versus a practice. That's what people that don't do anything, that's how they think. But I do think the more opportunities you put yourself out there in high competitive situations, the more apt something can happen. Now, I wouldn't tell that to Michael Rose-Ivy, right? I mean, who tore his ACL covering a kickoff.
Sure.
Right? Non-contact. You see non-contact things. But I don't want to just flatline it and say, well, what's one more practice? But the only reason this came up is because it was still I didn't think of it listening back on Saturday afternoon. But again, going to an elementary school and you're there for kids pickup, and the first thing you hear is,
what's going on in the spring game?
Yeah.
Well, can I
I think Amazing Daniel said it best, and I hate to give him credit. And I've said that like 6 times now in the past 2 months. So I don't know if that means he's saying good things or not, and he's so condescending, but this delivery fits. It got my attention, actually. I love when they do things to generate interest, and then people mock the fans for being interested.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, in a nutshell,
That's kind of what we're talking about here.
I vividly see his.
You know what is vital to the existence of this program?
Yeah.
Fans being interested. That is maybe
It's probably too quick to do a focus group, but could you do one-on-ones, or put a whole offensive line out there? You have 3 pass rushers. You get to say which guy goes. They all don't go at the same time. O-line has to be ready. D-line has to be ready. Quarterback has to drop. Like, you could do lots of things.
Yeah, and that's why I said on Monday, you better give them something that looks like football. Something.
And I know that, and that's important. Like, he was the first one to say it last spring. He's like, well, we want it to look, it's got to look something like football.
Right, because otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
So, but here's my question, and I'm asking because I don't know. I'm not trying to trap you here. I really don't know. Let's assume.
Well, you Fetty Wap or somebody? What you trap?
Trap game.
I'm like, hey, what's up? Hello.
So let's assume instead of a spring game that they would do some sort of scrimmage anyway, right? Whether it's open to the public, not televised, whatever. Let's assume they're not getting rid of the extra scrimmage.
Okay.
Is there an inherently higher injury risk doing it in front of people than just doing it privately? That's a genuine question.
One more time for the back end.
Okay. If they were going to scrimmage anyway,
okay,
is it inherently more risky to injury to do it in front of people? I get juices because I'm like, I get adrenaline, I get juices start flowing.
Yeah, you're
it's
like,
different.
Like the risk reward of like, well, you do something that you ordinarily wouldn't do because you're trying to show out, maybe, or feeling the pressure, or tense, or
like I'm asking, what's the injury risk difference between a regular scrimmage and a spring game?
God, I don't know. That's a good question.
Because my instinct would tell me not much. Like pretty similar, right? We saw at the NIL practice last year, guy tore his ACL. I can't remember who it was. It was a lineman.
Yeah.
Or linebacker, I think. Was it Dylan Rogers?
Was it Rogers?
I want to say that name, but I'm not sure. So I don't want to put that. But somebody tore his ACL. We were watching.
I thought it was Gradney.
It was Gradney. It was Roger Gradney. You're 100% right.
Okay.
So I got the initials messed up. I thought there was an R in there somewhere. But so I go. And I go, okay, we watched a guy at an NIL practice that we were allowed to be at tear his ACL. Like, how much different is that than a spring game?
Yeah, I don't. So, and I wasn't being dismissive when I said it didn't register with me.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 2 things that I would probably say. Number one, I'm cool with just seeing what they come up with.
Yeah, I'm interested. I am.
Like, I'm not up in, because he's hey, well, I don't know yet. We'll think of something.
But my point is, it better be good.
So I'm cool with that. Like, that's good enough for me.
And if it's good, I'm cool. But I'm just saying,
So
trying,
maybe so that's why I'm saying, are you surprised?
I'm not surprised, but I'm trying to give him a heads up here. Like, it better be good because the fans need it.
Yeah, I hear you.
The fans need it. They do.
I just I'm gonna take him out. I trust that they'll come up with something.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably give him the benefit of the doubt more than not. But this is one where I'm like, hey, like you got to tread a little careful here. That's Bet On It, brought to you by War Horse Sportsbook. We'll have Tony Mejia talk a little NBA and all the craziness that happened over the weekend coming up next. Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Radio. As we wrap up the show, I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, joined now by Tony Mejia of the Sporting News to try and give some context to all this NBA madness that's been going on. Tony, how are you this morning?
What's up, fellas? I'm doing great. How about you? Doing better than Marcus Jordan, who I was not hanging out with last night, even though he was in my area. That's like right down the street. So
are you doing better or worse than Luka Doncic's dad this morning?
I mean, he's hurt. He's legitimately hurt. I think he's the mouthpiece for the situation since Luka's not going to say anything.
Sure.
I think Luka's legitimately disappointed. But at the same time, I mean, the world's his oyster now. Not that it wasn't, but you can certainly do a lot more in LA than Dallas, despite the income tax implications.
So let me ask you this, because I'm sitting here, and I get the news drop 11:30 or whenever it was on Saturday night, same time as everybody else, and I go through did Shams get hacked? Like, I'm trying to figure this thing out. And then I see De'Aaron Fox the very next day get traded for what seems like a better haul than Luka Doncic, despite being not a bad player, but not on the same level as Luka Doncic. Have you been able to figure out what the hell happened in Dallas?
No, but I mean, I think that the answer to both trades is the same. I think it's not to bore the listeners, but it's related to aprons on luxury taxes and the salary cap, and two words, Supermax. And one, De'Aaron Fox didn't want to be in Sacramento. Luka Doncic did, and apparently, whether anybody else had an opinion, because it didn't look like Jason Kidd wanted any part of Luka Doncic being gone. Nico Harrison did not agree with the vision of being having his hands tied for the next few years, trying to maneuver around, that monster contract.
So, Tony, as I kind of sit here and I understand, like, there's a part of me that sort of gets the, hey, this is, I mean, you're talking what? Basically $70 million a year would have been the Supermax, 5 years, $360. Is that right? Somewhere in that range?
Yeah, like it was 345 or 365, something like that.
Okay, so you're basically talking about $70 million a year for Luka Doncic. I can understand being like, maybe I don't want to be tied to him because I am worried about the conditioning. I'm worried about, maybe the health. He's, I think he's only played over 70 games twice in his career. And so I get that. What I don't get is only calling one team and not seeing what the absolute most you could get for Luka Doncic. Like, I'm not overestimating his trade value, right? Like, they bungled this.
No.
Even if they wanted to get rid of him, they still bungled it.
I think the rationale is Nico Harrison has known Anthony Davis for years from his Nike relationships, and then also has known the Rob Pelinka for years. Mm-hmm. So the fact that him and Pelinka got together and kind of mused about it, and then really started talking about it, I think it was important to keep it under wraps, because if it does become a bidding war, then you don't get lowballed for Luka, but at the same time, it becomes a distraction that it hasn't really been for Dallas. What I do have a problem with is, how is Dalton Connect not in that deal? I can understand Austin Reeves. I can understand the Lakers saying, nah, we're not going to deal you, Austin. But I cannot understand Nico Harrison saying, hey, you got to give me your on a rookie contract.
Because at least that feels like a second number one pick at this point, right? Like, it feels
absolutely
right. Like when you get, like when Utah traded and they got Walker Kessler, it felt like they got an extra first round pick in that deal. Like, that's the part I can't get over. Anthony Davis is a nice player. I get that. The age, whatever. Like, he's still a really good player. But I go, okay, you only get one first round pick for this guy who, even if you're worried about him being out of shape or whatever, is still no worse than the fourth best player in the league.
Yeah, and we would still be seeing everybody freaking out about it. We would still have Dallas Mavericks fans having vigils outside the arena. But people that know the NBA would be like, all right, you got a future first rounder. We'll see what that turns into. But you did get nice young player in Max Christie, awesome little first rounder in Dalton Connect, and obviously Anthony Davis to pair with Kyrie Irving. So that would have been nice. Same thing with the Spurs. I mean, they made this deal without dealing Vassell or even Kelvin Johnson or who I thought was going to be in the deal,
or
Jeremy Sohan.
Castle or Sohan. Like, they got to keep everybody.
Amazing.
So,
and again, I think Sacramento, if they play a little harder ball, I mean, De'Aaron Fox wanted San Antonio wanted De'Aaron Fox. You could have at least pulled Sohan.
So let's move on to that deal, because I think we're on the same page with the Luka thing, where it's just not going to make any sense, really, at least from the Dallas perspective. If you're Lakers, you can't say yes fast enough, right? So let's move on to the De'Aaron Fox deal, because regardless of what it cost, and I do agree with you that San Antonio got a pretty good deal in that one. I assumed at least Sohan or Castle would have to be in that deal. But let's talk about the pairing of De'Aaron Fox with Victor Wembanyama, because that's something that I'm extremely intrigued by.
Look, it's a proven closer in this. I think he led the NBA in clutch points, or it was him and Curry last year, neck and neck.
Mm-hmm.
And he's had somewhat of a down season, but at the same time, there's been some distractions. There's been obviously him and Mike Brown butted heads. But I mean, he's an excellent defender. I would be hard pressed to name more, any faster players in the league. I think Amen Thompson's probably the best athlete in the league right now, but Fox is top 5,
mm-hmm.
For his size and what he can do. And now you put him with a freak in Victor Wembanyama, and you get him a little more mentorship to play that point from Chris Paul. And you have Castle, who's an amazing athlete, and Johnson and Sohan. And I think the key to that is Vassell, because he's going to have to be a knockdown shooter, had some injury issues.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time of his extension, he became the highest paid Spur. So they obviously believe in him. If he's a legit number 3 going forward, that's a championship contender for the next decade.
Yeah, I mean, so you mentioned De'Aaron Fox is having a bit of a down year. His down year is 25 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. Like that, you'll take that for a down year from just about anybody.
Right, and he's proven already,
yes,
that he can work with a ball dominant big man like Domantas Sabonis,
mm-hmm.
and Wembanyama sometimes needs the ball, but at the same time you can basically spoon feed him. This is a brilliant move from San Antonio.
Yeah, I'm really enamored by it. Like, obviously everybody's watching Wemby anyway, but to actually put him with a player of this talent level feels like it really accelerated their timeline in terms of being, as you mentioned, a title contender.
Yeah, I think so. I think it puts them in the mix in a loaded Western Conference, because I mean you're really better off counting who can't make the playoffs in the West this year than who can, and San Antonio certainly in the can boat now. So yeah, strong finish. You get that team into the postseason like Oklahoma City snuck in and then got some experience. You get Wemby some playoff experience, and then next year you're good to go. Where nobody's going to sleep on them.
So let's talk about another team that may or may not be able to get in the playoffs in the West. And to be 100% transparent, I am a fan here. The Golden State Warriors have reportedly been calling on every all-star under the sun. Jimmy Butler told them no. Zach LaVine's name was out there. Obviously, he's not going to be a trade partner for the Warriors. Like, is there anybody out there for the Warriors that would move the needle for you?
Durant would move the needle, and after a tough loss last night in Portland, maybe he's available, especially if the Heat don't deal them Jimmy Butler. Maybe Matt Ishbia, phones down and says, all right, the I'm going to spend whatever it takes to make us a contender thing isn't going to work just yet, so we got to start from scratch a little bit. And then KD becomes available, and obviously Bradley Beal regressing the way he did, although he's playing better now,
mm-hmm.
really put a big obstacle in Phoenix's way to try to pair people or to even deal for Butler. So KD, but I mean, who do you trade for him? That's the deal. Like the Warriors have pieces, but I don't want to deal Kuminga, especially the way he played before the injury.
Yeah, so if you're looking at Durant, I'm guessing you have to trade Kuminga to make that worth it for the Suns. So you're probably looking at what? Kuminga, I'm guessing Wiggins for the contract, and then I'm trying to think. There's maybe Gary Payton. He's another $10 million in there as well, and then a bunch of picks. Like if you make that deal, let's say you're losing Wiggins, Payton, and Kuminga, and then whatever picks it costs. Does that move put the Warriors back in a place where they actually have a chance in the West, or is it still? How many teams are they still behind if they land Durant in that scenario?
Yeah, you know, I mean, as well as Quentin Post has played over the last couple of games, and that's great. Him, Trace Jackson Davis, and Kevon Looney as your primary fives really makes it tough to say, all right, well, they can get out of the West. But yeah, I mean, certainly Kevin Durant would help. It's just a matter of, I think that they've gone into this mode where, all right, well, we're not going to blow up the future of this franchise. And they said that preemptively. They said that about a month ago. And then all of a sudden this week it's like, all right, well, we can't continue like this. So clearly they've been in panic mode, and behind the scenes, Mike Dunleavy has been trying to get something done to no avail.
Well, I'm glad to see that the Warriors front office is only about 4 years behind me on what they should do with the roster. Tony, we appreciate the time as always. Good stuff. And can't wait to see what the next couple days hold in the NBA before they hit that trade deadline.
Yeah, no doubt. The Bulls will be busy, and we'll see what the Lakers do. And obviously, I think the next couple of days is going to be fodder for all of us NBA fans. So hope to hook up with you guys maybe next week and we'll chat.
You think the Lakers have one more move left?
I do. I think they have one more play that they can make to a team that says, all right, you know what, we don't really want this guy. If you can part with that first-round pick you didn't bother to give Dallas, maybe there's a chat to be had.
That's our guy, Tony Mejia. We appreciate it, Tony. We'll talk to you later.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks.
That's Hurrdat Sports Radio on a Tuesday. DB and I will be back tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day.